been completely changed, and a lot of cases are not being recorded. Now, the anecdotal evidence is pretty overwhelmingly that hospitals now require doctors and nurses and other staff, even infected with COVID, to work if they are physically able to do so. Mortuaries are piling up with bodies, and funeral homes are working 24/7 to cremate bodies. I think it is a significant change, but in absolute number terms, the Communist Party is technically absolutely correct when they say that the number of deaths in China, both in absolute and relative terms at the moment, is still substantially below that of the UK or the US.
Tomorrow, the political consequences of the Chinese government's U-turn. The main news again, the Congressional Committee investigating the January 6th Capitol Hill riots has unanimously recommended that former President Donald Trump, his lawyer and others should face criminal charges in connection with the insurrection. The UK's High Court has ruled the government's scheme to send asylum seekers to Rwanda is lawful, and police in Canada say a 73-year-old man was behind a gun attack in Toronto that left 5 people dead. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
The Onion looks back at This Week in History. On May 6, 1937, the explosion of the German passenger ship Hindenburg brought cheer to an entire generation of Americans in the midst of the Great Depression. The souls of the American people were fleetingly revitalized by the flame-engulfed Zeppelin and the shrill screams of burning passengers leaping to their heartwarming deaths.
Oh my, it's burst into flames! The burning embers and charred flesh are cascading splendidly onto the mooring mast. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most terrific thing I've ever seen! Oh, the luminosity, the gaiety!
And on May 7th, 2000, Vladimir Putin became president of Russia after promising citizens he could bend anything they gave him with just his bare hands. And that was what happened this week in history. In the words of the Italian philosopher Niccolo Machiavelli, whoever wants to foresee the future must first look at the past and then imagine all that old stuff looking more future-y and space-like.
Free Talk Live. It is Free Talk Live. Welcome to the program here. As always, you're invited. If you want to join the show, you can do that. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
And Aria.
We may be joined by Bonnie here in a little bit. Had an interesting but short day in court today for the Crypto 6. We weren't sure whether or not it was going to happen at all. We were waiting to see if Renee Spinella, my ex-girlfriend, was able to come back into court to finish her testimony that she started last week before she unfortunately caught COVID.
And ultimately, her attorney as well.
Yeah.
Wow. But ultimately, she was able to. I was surprised. I popped over next door at the Mighty Moose Mart to get something to eat and saw you in the other room or in the Bitcoin Embassy and was shocked. I thought you had court all day. So
no, we got out early because Renee was back. She tested negative for COVID. Her attorney, however, still had COVID, so he was not able to be in the room, although he was in a different room in the same courthouse monitoring through an online feed or in intercourt feed, I guess. And
okay, so they can do that. They just chose not to put it online? I mean, the infrastructure is there.
Oh, yeah,
okay.
They got cameras in that room.
Well, I knew they had cameras, but that's very different from being able to, like, have an audio feed, right?
They got it all wired up. They just chose not to.
Yeah, they did choose not to, regrettably.
It's a real shame. It would have been great for this trial to have been streamed online for anyone who wanted to see, but the federal government courts have not wanted to have any kind of viewing, at least easily. They want you to have to physically come down there, pass through an invasive search that's more invasive than the TSA.
Is it?
Yeah, they take your cell phones.
Oh, see, I don't even take my cell phone in.
Because it's going to get confiscated.
Right. I know enough about the federal government to know I am not handing them my cell phone if I don't have to, and you can just leave your... That's what I don't get. If people know they're not going to be allowed to take their cell phones in, why isn't everyone just leaving their cell phones in their car?
I think they don't know, and then they find out when they get there, and then by that time you're far away from your car, and it's cold outside, so you just leave it there, and then it's in the hands of the security goons, and you have no idea what they're going to do with it.
Probably nothing, but
you don't know. Purportedly, they just lay it on a table and then assign no numbers to it. So, like, even if they don't actually hook it up to a downloading device and image the cell phone while you're gone, which they could totally do if they wanted to.
You're not telling them they can't. You're literally handing them your device. If they want to search it, you've put it in their custody. They don't require any special permission at that point. You've already given it.
If you, even if they're just laying it down on a table with other phones, the real reason not to do it, beyond the concern about what they might do, is that there's no security on this table. Like, when you give them your phone, they don't make a note and say, Aria Galaxy S20 or whatever, right? Like, they don't give you a ticket that's associated with your number. They just say, okay, we're just going to leave it here. And so,
which is amazing, because I'm pretty sure the courthouse here in Keene did more than that. When I went through and I had my dog's prong collar in my purse, and they took it from me, obviously, because it's metal and you can't have that or whatever. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure they gave me some sort of sheet of paper and was like, you have to have this to pick it back up.
Right. Makes sense.
And this wasn't even like a phone or anything. It was just a stupid dog collar that I had forgotten about.
Right. Well, of course, they'll let you in with a phone in state courts in New Hampshire.
That's true.
That's okay here. But not in federal court. But they'll just leave it out there for anyone who walks by who's like, ooh, I need to upgrade. And just pick up and walk out. Now, in theory, they're on video, so it, in theory, could be investigated who picked up which phone. But
they could always say, oh, it was a mistake. It looks just like my phone.
They could have. Yeah, so, exactly.
I wouldn't want to risk it. And they don't even have to take it off the table. They could just tell the guy, oh, yeah, that one's my phone.
And then they'll hand it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't know. And they didn't write anything down. And chances are, when you're leaving, it's not the same security person who was there as you entered. So just do yourself a favor. Leave your phone in your vehicle or in your friend's vehicle, however you get there. Don't take it in.
So today the prosecution wrapped up their case. There was only like 5 more minutes left with Renee that they had to wrap up, and then Mark Sisti, my attorney, cross-examined her. She did, I think, a decent job while she was on the stand, and then that was it. That was the end of the prosecution's case. My attorney then filed in a few motions to dismiss, which you can do and at that point in the game.
Okay.
You know, you always try to dismiss them before the trial, which of course never works. And then what happens is, you know, the state, or in this case, the U.S. attorneys make their case.
Right.
And the argument is they didn't make a case. They didn't show enough evidence. They didn't show any evidence in some cases, and they didn't meet the burden of reasonable doubt at all. Like, they didn't even meet X, Y, and Z requirements for these various
some of
different
these
charges.
Things should not go to a jury, and the judge should summarily dismiss them.
Correct. That's the argument at this stage in the game.
How do you feel about it? Obviously, nothing is certain.
No, I mean, I'm not optimistic. You know how judges are. I mean, they
are part of the state, right? That's what a lot of people fail to understand. And many of them, perhaps tried to be impartial, but ultimately, you are asking the state to determine whether or not the state is correct.
Yeah, and you could see the judge was already in the motion hearing where both sides were arguing what, you know, Sisti put in the motion to dismiss, and then the other side said, well, you don't dismiss it because of this and that. And you could tell the judge was reaching to try to make excuses to keep the charges in play, even though they're just so weak. I mean, their case is so shoddy. But
yeah, some of these charges were trivially easy to have dismissed.
You would think. But again, as you say, he works for the government.
Right.
He's likely going to tote the government line as far as he possibly can. So we'll see. I mean, if he kicks a couple out, great. That's, you know, fewer things for the jury to look at, and it'll look bad if the jury comes back tomorrow and the judge says, yeah, I didn't think this particular charge or these 2 charges were worth continuing with, so I'm just going to toss those out. Now you only have 6 charges or whatever that you have to look at. That definitely would be a black eye to the prosecution, which is one of the reasons why it probably isn't going to happen. But if it does, that's great.
No, but to be honest and to be fair and to give credit where credit's due, I have seen from Judge LaPlante a certain reasonableness that I don't expect out of judges.
Yeah, and I have said that before as well. During jury selection, he seemed to play it pretty straight up the middle.
Yeah.
You know, he hasn't been crazy with shutting down the defense at all. That hasn't happened, basically. There have been a few
Well, your defense has yet to start, right?
But what I mean is, like, he hasn't like stopped cross-examination or anything like that. We haven't been given notice. We're not going to be allowed to call our witnesses. I mean, if you look at the Ross Ulbricht situation from 2015, which was also in federal court, although in New York instead of New Hampshire.
Completely different district, and New Hampshire is a very different beast from New York.
But you would think like federal court A, federal court B, how could it be that different?
Because the people, man. Yeah. I would expect to have a very different experience in Mississippi's federal court too, where it would be much more conservative in nature.
But how many of the people are from here, right? Like, I don't even know. Is this judge actually from New Hampshire originally? Is he a New Hampshire native, or was he transplanted here from somewhere else? So I imagine
he's
the
bound to
feds
have a
move
wiki,
around.
but I feel and I'm certain libertarians out there have looked him up, but I feel uncomfortable about doing too much research into the judge in my case. So maybe someone out there has looked into it and they know the answer.
He is a former prosecutor. That much I know, but I don't know from where. So
I mean, they all
can't
are,
say.
right?
Probably.
Isn't that the career path is if they can't get into defense because they can't speak passionately, and this is what's required for a defense attorney. They have to be passionate.
Yeah, sure.
But a prosecutor doesn't have to be passionate. They just have to be able to stick to the rules and be, honestly, as boring and bland as possible.
And they are boring, let me tell you.
Yeah, Seth Afram was... Even though he mentioned my name just constantly, I was about to fall asleep on him because because the material was interesting, but it was presented in such a droll and uninteresting way. It's almost a gift how the ability he has to be uninteresting and boring, right? Like if he could monetize it, he did. That's why he monetized it and became a prosecutor.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess that's a valid career path for people who don't have any sense of morality, but for people who do, they might want to look into, I don't know, being a sleep aid, maybe?
So it's going to be on for tomorrow, apparently. They cut it out early today because, again, the motions to dismiss were made, the arguments were made, the judge has to take it under advisement. He didn't issue a ruling right then. So presumably we're going to get one by tomorrow morning as the various different sides are filing paperwork in the court right now to sort of supplement their motions. So we'll see. Again, not going to get my hopes up too much, but I think they've got a weak-ass case, and it's going to be interesting to see how the jury ends up deciding on this when the defense begins tomorrow at 9 a.m. We got plenty of interesting things to talk about, including the new term for adult children. It's kidults coming up. Do you prefer to listen to Free Talk Live on your schedule on demand? You can find the link to our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com, which features the daily digest of our radio show 7 days a week. Just drop our RSS feed into your favorite podcast client or subscribe to us on the large platforms if you prefer, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartMedia, Spotify, and Stitcher. All the links are at feeds.freetalklive.com. If the daily digests aren't enough for you and you really don't want to miss a moment of Free Talk Live, you can always sign up for our AMPS Patreon at amps.freetalklive.com for just $5 a month, and you'll get the full radio show without recorded commercials. Plus, you'll help us advertise, market, promote, and support Free Talk Live. That's amps.freetalklive.com to join AMPS, or feeds.freetalklive.com to get our main podcast or find us on the major podcast platforms.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Welcome to the show. The phones are open if you want to join us here at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. If you notice people in the background here tonight, we have the crew from the Ballad of the Crypto 6, the documentary film, the independent documentary that is here. I'd like to point out that I did not donate to this documentary. I was debating it. I was thinking, well, you know, should the Shire Free Church donate to the Ballad of the Crypto 6? We want to make sure they make their goal. They had a pretty lofty goal. I think it was like $60,000. And I was holding off just to see how it went because it wasn't going, like there weren't a whole lot of people pouring in donations. But what ended up happening was, looked like some crypto whales stepped up and like came out of the woodwork, basically. People who maybe didn't even really know that much about Free Talk Live. I'm not sure. Like, I don't know who they are.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, they were never identified. We just know them by a Twitter handle.
Yeah, there was one at least that was just an anonymous Twitter handle.
Right.
He's
and
really
that
friendly.
person gave some significant amount of Bitcoin, and then apparently more Monero donations came in later on. So I'm not sure what the total number of donations or what the total amount was, but it was enough to make this thing happen. So
I also did not donate anything, and like you, I considered it. Probably not to the extent that you did, but I did think, you know, I want to see this made.
Yeah, I think it's important, but I'm glad that people thought it was important enough to where I didn't have to step in. That's actually an indicator that this really is something people value. And so thank you to whoever you are out there that has made this production possible. I presume it's going to be really good, but
the trailer was really good.
Yeah, the trailer was entertaining as hell.
I think it's probably my favorite thing that has covered the Crypto 6. It's just really entertaining.
Ballad of the Crypto 6 with the number 6.com is their website. So they've been shooting up here ever since the trial started, basically getting footage from outside of the courthouse, doing interviews. I guess they just interviewed you today, and Arya and Nobody as well. And I guess they're riding up with us to the courthouse tomorrow morning, Bonnie. So that's going to be happening. So it's been fun talking to these guys. They're a crew from Mexico, and they seem to really know what they're doing. So that's all I can say. If you want to check out their website, it's Ballad of the Crypto 6 with the number 6. Let's go to the phones here. Coming up, Luddite teens and the other story about kidults. This is the new term for adult children, people that are obsessed with like buying toys, basically.
Well, I feel like we all brought in stories about kids today, which is really not common for us three.
Are they I guess we can get into it later.
Sydney's on the line first, though, in Pennsylvania. Go ahead, Sydney.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. Hello, everybody. I am calling from my car.
Before you go on, are you on like a speakerphone or a headset or something?
I am.
Can you undo that, perchance?
Sure. Give me one moment.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So real quick, I guess, on the story of the Luddites, I suppose. Now, are these people who are just like behaving childishly, or they have childhood hobbies like buying toys and things like that? These aren't like...
You're mixing them up. So there's the Luddites, which are teenagers that are against technology, and then there's the kidults, which are adults that are really into toys and acting like children.
But they're not like weird about it. Like, this isn't a sexual thing, right? They're
not
just,
that I am aware
like,
of.
I just like playing with toys or whatever for some weird reason. I mean,
That's
I
a
get
different
it.
thing.
I'm a grown adult who plays video games, and it's not far removed, video games, from action figures. And I mean, honestly, until a few years ago, I played Dungeons and Dragons, and you have little figurines in there. They're not exactly action figures.
Well, we'll get into it. Sydney, are you back with us? Go ahead.
Yeah, how's the call quality now?
Better, thank you.
All right, great. So thanks again for taking my call.
Sure.
I wanted to talk about the Crypto 6 case. I'm not surprised there are some powerful backers backing that documentary. There's a lot of people, I think, that don't want to come forward or be associated, which is totally fine. Thank you, Ian, for taking this case as far as it's gotten. I've been following the coverage online at Freaking. Mr. Penguin's been keeping transcripts as best as he can, it seems like.
Yeah,
sometimes
really.
they're a little bit hard to decipher, but it seems like the really good content is there.
Okay.
Something that really stuck out to me about the Day 6 was this expert witness. I want to commend you guys for having encrypted software, just the same way that you guys preach on the radio.
As I understand it, there was no expert witness.
Maybe he means the special agent lady, because she kind of seemed like expert witness. Are you talking about
But
the
she
one
was
that...
not an expert. She was determined by the court to definitively not
never even
be an
called that
expert.
lady.
No.
The
But
blockchain lady
I think
never got
he's
called.
confused of the special agent lady who went through your laptop.
Yeah, what are you referring to, Sydney? Can you be a little more clear?
I mean, in normal parlance, she would be an expert. It's just court.
No, she's not an
court
expert.
words that say she's not
just
an expert.
a bureaucrat who went through my laptop. That's all.
She knew stuff
from
about it
my
off the top of
reading-
her head.
Yeah, from my reading of what Mr. Penguin said, it sounded like she was on the stand. His coverage does jump around a little bit, and he makes lots of commentary. But then it seemed like they deferred over to somebody else that said that they analyzed the hard drive that they got from the church's laptop.
That's right.
And then they mentioned that they had to send it off to Quantico, Virginia, in order to crack this encryption. And it took them, 2.5 weeks or something.
It took several weeks to crack. It was only an 8-character password, so certainly had it been, 64 characters, they probably wouldn't have gotten it done by now. But it was a weak password because honestly, there really wasn't that much of importance to me on that computer. Almost all the files were on the completely unencrypted computer in the studio as well, so it was like pretty much a mirror image.
And there's a trade-off between security and, convenience. And obviously, any encryption is good, and an 8-bit character that's encrypted, 8-bit character password that's encrypted is significantly superior to just an 8-bit password. However, this is something you have to enter almost every time you want to bring up your laptop to do anything. So you don't want a full sentence every time you have to close your laptop lid.
With capital and
but
numbers.
it's a trade-off.
Yeah. I mean, if you've got super important information, then you better put it behind a much more complicated password because 8 characters ain't going to cut it for more than 4 or 5 weeks. They hammered away at that thing with a brute force, dictionary attack or whatever it was, and they got in.
It is nice. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I love to hear that they had to do that and that you sort of made them go through that process because anybody's computer, if everybody did that, it would make a lot of their investigations a lot more complicated.
Yeah.
And I think that encryption is something that can protect people's privacy. There's a lot of benefits to it. So I was curious about how long the password was. So thanks for saying that it was 8. I am curious if it was just letters or if you included any extra symbols or anything like that.
It was, I think, letters and numbers, but that was it. So no symbols.
Okay, cool. Yeah. All righty. Well, once they take your hardware, it's sort of all in their hands. And like Ross, for example, Ross Ulbricht, he got ambushed in a library, and they took his laptop while it was open.
Yeah, so
then,
his laptop was already unencrypted because he was in the middle of using it. at the
Couldn't
time
they
when
just
they came
like
up,
quickly pressed off,
snatched him.
held it
Yeah,
down?
they surprised him.
You got to hold in the power button for a few seconds to get it to actually power down entirely.
I've heard that
And
he
when
was
when they point guns at you and tell you to put your hands in the air, you're
I
like,
see.
hold on while I shut down my laptop.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've always heard that they got him in a library, but were they like pointing guns? Did they grab him or?
Well, we don't get to find out.
I think they made a distraction. They made a distraction and sort of caught his eye, and then somebody came and snatched the laptop out of his hands.
Wow.
What I heard, I guess, from like Wired. There are some defenses against that. I've seen online people have like USB drives.
I mean, if they want in, they're going to get in, man.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, and with Ross Ulbricht, they would have dedicated the amount of resources it took to get in there.
It's just nice to think that.
Just imagine how Ian's trial would have been if he had to sit in jail this whole time like Ross had to.
Yeah.
When he had to defend himself.
It would have been way harder to put
freedom,
together. It would have been way harder to put together a defense from inside a prison cell. There's no doubt about it. Thank you, Sydney. I appreciate the call tonight. The number here is 603-283-6160. We'll continue here with the Kiddles coming up.
A congressman recently revealed that legislation totaling 2,900 pages and involving more than $1 trillion was available to members of Congress for less than 48 hours to study and consider. That's over 60 pages of legislation per hour. Do you think anyone read the entire bill? I'm Jim Babka with DownsizeDC.org. Consider a proposal buried in a 3,200-page, $388 billion bill, which would have empowered committee chairmen or their agents to examine Americans' tax returns. When this horrible provision came to light, no one claimed to know how it got into the bill. One congressman questioned said, "I didn't write it, I didn't approve it, I wasn't even consulted." If your attorney represented you this way, he might be disbarred. But this is how Congress represents you every day. That's why DownsizeDC.org has created the Read the Bills Act. You can force Congress to read their bills before they pass them at DownsizeDC.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
The House of Representatives Committee investigating the January 6th Capitol Hill riots unanimously recommending that former President Donald Trump, his lawyer and others should face criminal charges in connection with the insurrection. The panel is recommending charges of obstructing an official proceeding of Congress, conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to make false statements, and inciting or assisting an insurrection. The vote is not legally binding, and the Department of Justice is not required to take any immediate action. But Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland, unveiling the charges, made it clear the committee believes action is justified.
We believe that the evidence described by my colleagues today warrants a criminal referral of former President Donald J. Trump, John Eastman, and others for violations of this statute. The whole purpose and obvious effect of Trump's scheme were to obstruct, influence, and impede the central moment for the lawful transfer of power in the United States.
A Trump spokesman dismissed today's proceedings as a kangaroo court. In other news today, the UK's High Court has ruled that the government scheme to send asylum seekers to Rwanda is lawful. So far, legal challenges have meant that no flights carrying migrants to the African nation have been able to take off. From FSN's London bureau, Giles Gibson with more.
Judges at the High Court said the UK's agreement with Rwanda is consistent with the UN's Refugee Convention, but the court also said that Priti Patel, who was Home Secretary when the policy was introduced, had not properly considered the circumstances of the individuals due to be sent to Rwanda. The policy was unveiled back in April, but the first flight in June was stopped by a last-minute injunction. NGOs and charities have vowed to fight the policy all the way in the courts, with no flights expected anytime soon as appeals work their way through the legal system.
Police in Canada say a 73-year-old man was responsible for a gun attack in Toronto that left 5 people dead. Police killed the attacker at the scene but have no explanation yet for his motive for attacking the apartment complex. A United Nations summit has approved a new set of goals aimed at at guiding global action to protect biodiversity by the end of the decade. The Global Biodiversity Framework seeks to protect 30% of the world's land and sea by the year 2030. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSA.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. You can join the show here. You can bring up anything you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Aria.
And you can join us online. Just head on over to freetalklive.com. Enjoy the features we have there for you, including our social media server, which is social.freetalklive.com. Now, I don't know if you heard this, guys, but apparently Elon Musk, his eminence, the supposed free speech absolutist, has made a new policy for Twitter that says that if you're promoting one of the competitors...
They did roll that back.
Oh, they
really?
did?
Yes.
Oh, okay, because I thought that was really
that you
bad.
would be banned. If
Due to extreme backlash. You moron! What did you
Yeah.
How... See, this is why I think that the allegations that we hear about Elon Musk in regard to not Starlink, the other one, Tesla.
Neuralink? Oh, Tesla.
Tesla, and former employees and current employees who don't admit their identity, saying that part of their job was to control Elon Musk's man-child impulses. When I hear that, I think, okay, there's a decent chance this is just blown out of proportion. They're just
right, because they said that about Trump too. And
Yeah,
it's like, what are the odds? Like,
that they're just sour employees. They were fired and they're salty. However, then you see stuff like this, and this is the behavior of an impulsive man-child who did not think this through at all.
I did think this was really, really in bad taste. I've never heard of any other social media platform doing that.
No, it would be insane. 95% of the content on Facebook is stuff from
somewhere else.
Tumblr and Twitter, and the same is true for Twitter. It's all screenshots of Facebook and Tumblr and TikTok and whatever else.
I think there wouldn't have been as much backlash. I would personally think it was wrong, but there wouldn't have been as much backlash if he just said, we're not going to promote NBC, all those, New York Times, all of those, mass media things. I think people would have been like, yeah, let's do it.
So much for a free speech absolutism, though, right?
I don't know how very many people who are actually free speech absolutists. I can't believe he ever used that term.
You can find it at social.freetalklive.com.
Yeah, where we had another report come in recently.
I just click resolved on these things and keep. I don't know if you're referring to the same one. The other transphobic report, another one.
Yeah, so as administrators of social.freetalklive.com, Aria and I received these reports, and 90% of them come from users who aren't even on our website.
That's so annoying, man.
Because Mastodon, which is the system that we use, is federated, which means that anybody with a federated Mastodon elsewhere that has not disconnected from us for good is able to view our accounts, and we can view their accounts, and vice versa, and that's a cool thing. That's a cool idea.
It is. It's great.
But when you get somebody who's got a stick up their butt about what somebody has said on a server that isn't even the same server they're on...
That's like, you don't even have to look at that.
Right, but they find the report button, and they go over there, and they click that button, and they try to get somebody taken down because of quote-unquote transphobia. But you, the trans person who administers the site, you got to it before I did. And you just rejected the request.
What was the...
Right?
I just click mark as resolved, which means no action is taken, and we just make it go away.
Resolved. But what was it about?
It's just someone claiming some user was transphobic. I don't even know if there was anything to it.
There was something to it. There was no trend. I don't care if it's transphobic or not. I want to get that out of the way, right? Yeah. Even he's up there saying trans people don't exist and should be, thrown in prison or whatever. They're mentally ill. Fine, whatever.
You can say that.
Yeah, you can say that.
If you don't like it, just just block the dude. That's all.
Now, if he's out there saying, I hate trans people and I'm going to start going and killing them, okay, well, that's something we should look into. But that's not what this is. That's a threat of violence, and that's a fundamentally different thing from someone just being transphobic. So I want to, even if it was transphobic, I'm not going to do anything about it.
I don't even know if I would do anything about somebody threatening violence, because it's like, okay.
If it was a real actionable threat, I don't know what we would have to do.
Go ahead. Make yourself a paper trail of all your violence threats so it can be looked at by whoever it is that wants to. I mean, I'm not going to go and report it or whatever, but if somebody reported it to the police, then they would have a whole thread of this person's violent threats. I don't want to delete that evidence.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't delete it. I would probably consult with you about it. Like, hey, man, here's a thing that we may need to look into. But anyway, that's not what we're dealing with here. It's just someone arguing with. He pointed out to someone that it's not. No one owes you, in his words, allegiance to your gender ideology. No one owes you belief in your idea that gender is a spectrum.
Yeah,
but that's a true statement, right?
Yeah,
not transphobic or not, it's a true statement.
Yeah,
not actionable.
So Mastodon, it isn't perfect. It is, an alternative to Twitter. It's self-hosted. I like that. I like that it's open source. In theory, someone who wanted to go in and edit Mastodon's code could do that. We don't have those guys. We don't have the money to, or the interest in paying them to do that kind of work. So we just have to deal with it as is. And unfortunately, that means that we have to deal with these stupid reports coming in. And as you said, you just kind of bypassed it or hit resolved or whatever. But it would be nice if we could first of all, it'd be nice if we could ban people from off the server reporting people on our server and just never have to see them again.
That would be
That's
ideal.
not an option.
But I mean,
it'd be nice if we could write the guy back and just be like, stop snitching. There's no way to do it.
I have a dilemma about going to the police that I've thought about for a long time. Like one time I was really into watching it was the only time in my life that I was really into watching true crime, murder stories.
Mm-hmm.
So I had been thinking about that a lot. And I was doing Uber Eats, but I was taking a break from the slowest part of the day, probably 4. It was still daylight outside. And I just parked my car and I was watching YouTube videos in my car on a road called, I think, Park Street in San Antonio off of Broadway, if anybody knows where that is. There's just lots of houses, and I think it's kind of cute. Some of the houses you can tell somebody ghetto lives there and it's not very well taken care of, and some of them are almost like McMansions. It's really cool. Anyways, so I'm sitting by some
I haven't
houses.
heard the term McMansion since the episode of King of the Hill.
That's where I always think of when I hear that term, and I think that's where I got it from. But anyways, so but they're all really cool, Spanish style, and I like it. But anyways, I was sitting next to some houses that weren't that were a little run down, but I didn't really care. I always felt safe in San Antonio, and I was sitting there watching YouTube videos on my phone, and this man with scars all over his head, and he looked crazy a little bit, and he definitely had tattoos, so I'm just prejudging him.
Yeah.
I'm just letting you know.
Looked a little rough and tumble.
Well, he's got tattoos on his head. That's
right.
That's a bit beyond, your aria tattoos on your arm kind of thing.
And he came up and he waved to me from the window, so I rolled it down an inch, and I was just like, hello. And he had, by the way, he had come out when the house was right next to me.
Oh, okay.
And
he was just checking on you.
And that's the reason I even talked to him at all if I'm driving away. If he just walked up from the street, I was just
too creepy if he.
I thought maybe he wanted to know what I was doing at his house.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't. Maybe it was dumb anyway. But I opened it an inch, and he was like,
"Was he want to come inside and see my mannequin collection?"
It was almost like that. He said, "Hey, I was just wondering. I have a really cute dog, and I wanted to know if you wanted to come pet my dog."
Whoa!
I look at the house, the yard he pointed at. There was no dog in the yard. He was talking about inside his house,
yeah.
And I was just like, no thanks, I'm actually leaving. And I drove away.
Oh man.
And it was really
good save.
It was really creepy. And so I always thought later, I was like, what if he's a murderer? What if I called the police and they went and investigated him, and then they found out he murdered lots of people in his house? And what if they never find him because I don't report him? And I was like, no, I'm not going to call the cops.
I know. You inside.
I know.
There's no crime there.
So that's what I don't think there's any crime there, and I don't think that I should have. But what if he's killing people that way?
Did you call the police?
No.
Okay.
It was just what if I needed to, and this, what if I'm the only one that knows that he's a murderer?
Well, I mean, it's a tricky question,
right? What if you have an
right?
overactive imagination? I mean, it probably wasn't. I mean, it sounds really wrong, right? It definitely seems inappropriate to do something like that.
He could have brought the dog out.
He could have, yeah.
That would have been the way to approach this situation if he wanted to show you his actual dog.
For sure. It's very questionable for sure. The number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You can bring up whatever's on your mind. We'll get into the kidults. What are they? They're people who are really into toys, but they're grown-ups. Apparently this is a newer thing, and we'll talk about it. It's Free Talk Live. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market. Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and you can join us here at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And don't forget to check out Bitcoin.com. If you're ready to start learning about cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, just go to Bitcoin.com, click Get Started. There at the top of the page, you will be presented with some introductory information and some information that might be a little more advanced once you get through the first parts. But if you only have 3 minutes, just watch that first video and you'll get some of the most important basic info down. You definitely want to do a little bit of research into this before you decide to actually get in and purchase your first cryptocurrency, whatever that might be. Maybe it's a fraction of a Bitcoin. You can buy 1% or less. You don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. You can get
or a
Bitcoin
whole Monero.
Yeah, Monero, Bitcoin Cash, Dash. There's so many different options out there, and some of them are available for purchase through Bitcoin.com as well, and they have their news site at news.bitcoin.com. We were just talking about the Twitter restrictions, which you say, Arya, they've walked back. Did they walk them back completely or part of the way? The restriction was that, according to Elon Musk, the new policy, if you were, quote-unquote, using your account to promote some other social media, that it would be suspended. Your account on Twitter would be suspended. They included Mastodon, they included Instagram, they included, I believe, Facebook as well, and several others that I hadn't heard of.
It's just so weird. Like, so many people have like their YouTube or their Instagram in their bio or whatever.
Well, some social media platforms were exempted and some of them were not. Like, you could still promote TikTok.
Oh, interesting.
So presumably you could still share your TikTok, but that's the way this works, right? You create something on one social media platform and then you share it to the others. I don't know why that's what we do, but that's what we do. But according to CNN here, Twitter has deleted, I don't know why they would use the term delete, the controversial new policy that banned links to other social media platforms.
Oh, okay.
I didn't even know this had happened until it had already been, undone. Less than 24 hours after it was introduced, it was undone.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that, because I did see some walking back partially of Musk where he was saying, I think it was some other conservative poster or something had said, well, no, it doesn't mean you can't share links. It just means you can't be constantly promoting the other site.
Oh, yes, because they have human beings there who are constantly monitoring people's feeds to see, okay, well, you've mentioned Mastodon in 46% of your last tweets, and that exceeds the 45% threshold. So now we have to ban you.
That's what you mean. They have an automated system.
Right. Well, we can absolutely trust an automated system, right?
Well, that's why the Free State Project got banned the other day, because they were, quote unquote, 13 years old. And that's because when they signed up for Twitter, they selected their birth date as 2009 or something like that.
Are you joking?
No, they got
they're
banned.
back now, but it did happen for like a whole day and a half.
No wonder libertarians love the Free State Project so much, though. They're 13, underage.
13 is a little young for most libertarians.
So it sounds like you're saying they deleted the entire policy at this point. So it's over.
According to this.
Okay.
It also deleted the tweet thread from the support account that had announced the policy earlier in the day.
Okay. Well, that's good that he's able to at least take feedback. Even though it was a rash decision, he was able to quickly take feedback and undo it. And look, the reality of course, Twitter is it is Musk's property. If he wants to get drunk and start making policy decisions and start banning people, he can do that. It's his property and he can do whatever it is he wants to do.
I wonder if he'll really step down, because he said he would abide by the result, but I wonder if he's just going to be like, I don't want to.
Well, now you're talking about the other thing that happened, right? So, which is that, and I know you wanted to discuss this tonight, that Elon Musk has put up a poll about, 24 hours ago or something like that, maybe a little longer than that.
It has expired. I think it was a 24-hour poll, and it has ended.
Yeah, and in this poll, he asked the question of, should he step down as CEO of Twitter? And the majority of respondents said he should.
He's going to have some sort of, and he said he would abide
he did.
by the poll. However, what does that mean? I'm not a linguist, and I haven't spent a significant amount of time thinking about whether or not one can abide by a poll without actually enacting the will as expressed by that poll. Like, can he abide the decision of the poll without actually stepping down as CEO of Twitter? I don't know.
Maybe he'll just say 7% is within the margin of error.
Yeah, and it could come down to some, misplaced comma, or I didn't actually put a comma there. So in reality,
the Babylon Bee had a funny take on it. I saw their headline. I didn't read the article, but the headline was Musk declares victory or whatever thanks to write-in votes.
That is pretty good.
Or mail-in votes.
I just wrote put Alex Jones in charge.
Yeah,
I just put yes, and
nice
I didn't offer an alternative. I mean, just from what I've seen of Musk since the takeover, I don't think he's cut out for this.
I think he's entertaining.
I just
voted
didn't
no.
vote.
He is.
I didn't vote. You voted yes, and you voted no. I was like, I just don't care.
He's entertaining, but that doesn't mean I want him to be in charge of Twitter.
I don't
Obviously,
care.
I could just leave Twitter, but I think Twitter would flourish under someone who is less of an impulsive man-child.
I know Alex Jones has InfoWars, but it's not Twitter. Like if he owned Twitter, it would be the most interesting place on the internet.
Alex Jones?
Yeah.
I tend to agree with that. Make Alex Jones CEO.
Right.
He's been a successful businessman.
Or Ye. No, not Ye.
No, he's too off the rails. That's the thing. I love him, but it's too off the rails. Like it wouldn't be. He sometimes goes past the point of being entertaining anymore.
You're talking about Ye?
Yeah.
I think that he got rejected from Parler. Remember, he was going to buy Parler, and he was locked in. The deal was in the pipes, and then Parler said nope.
Could have been the Nazi thing, you know. I mean, that can drive people away. I mean, it's one thing to be a Christian who's advocating all these things, but then you go out there and you say that, you know, Jews should forgive Hitler, and most Christians, and I think Parler was a Christian platform. I know Gab is.
Could be.
But most Christians are going to say, you know what, I don't think we see eye to eye on this.
Regarding the Elon Musk poll, I mean, he definitely comes off as impulsive, but at the same time, he also comes off as calculating. Meaning that I don't think Elon Musk, I don't think he would have put up this poll without a plan for what to do if the answer is yes, you must resign.
It better not be Grimes.
He's got something that he wants to do here. Now, maybe he already has a CEO in mind. You know, maybe he's going to put one of his best buddies in charge of it. So essentially, it'll make no particular change to Twitter. Or maybe he is really going to look at options here. You have Edward Snowden. Mark came in here during the break to let me know that Edward Snowden has apparently stepped up as a potential CEO of Twitter. And if you think about it, the dude probably could use some work, right? Like he's in Russia. I'm sure he's taking some consulting gigs or whatever. But I mean, how much work can you really get as an American escapee in Russia? That's just hiding out.
I suspect Edward Snowden is accepting cryptocurrency donations.
That's what he actually says. He says, I take payment in Bitcoin. That was his response to Elon Musk's post about, quote, this is Musk saying, the question is not finding a CEO. The question is finding a CEO who can keep Twitter alive. And Snowden says, I take payment in Bitcoin. So it sounds to me like he's throwing his hat in the ring.
And I suspect that Snowden has received a significant amount of Bitcoin donations from libertarians who support him.
He's probably living comfortably.
Yeah, he's probably not hurting. But I agree, Edward Snowden is a good choice. I would like to see Edward Snowden and Chelsea Manning working together, and Julian Assange. Might as well give them the trifecta. All three CEOs.
Chelsea Manning is also dating Grimes,
which is
that's awkward.
There's going to be some
Musk, be the bigger
there.
person and make Chelsea Manning CEO. Be the bigger man. I couldn't resist.
unless he doesn't care that she's dating Grimes, because he's seems to be kind of not monogamous. Like him and Azalea Banks and Grimes used to be a throuple, and I would way rather have Azalea Banks own Twitter. Well, then again,
I don't know who that is. Is that a singer or something?
She's a rapper.
So
yeah, but a dude. It's one thing for a dude to be not monogamous when it comes to multiple women.
Hmm.
It's different for them to be monogamous when it comes to someone else having sex with their girlfriend.
Baby daddy, yeah. I think they had 2 babies.
Is Chelsea Manning, does she have any techs, specs as far as her knowledge is concerned?
I don't know.
I mean, all she's sort of known for is being in the military and coming out with, the truth about what the military did. So what
but
are
she's
her...
principled. She's willing to pay a price.
She's not libertarian, though.
No, but she's willing to pay a price for what she believes.
That's true.
And I respect that.
But Snowden's a tech guy, right? He did contracting for the NSA.
That's why I was going to say, I'd be surprised if he's not doing some secret white hat hacking.
Snowden?
Yeah, you were saying, I bet he doesn't have money, and I was saying...
No, Arya makes a good point that he... I was just saying I didn't think he had a job.
I meant to say a job, not money.
Yeah. But I just don't know if Chelsea's got the chops to be like a tech CEO. Snowden
I'm not sure
could.
Musk has any tech experience as well.
He's just got money and knows how to spend it.
Yeah.
There's more coming up here. The number is 603-283-6160. Coming up, the term, I had never heard it before, kidults. We've talked about adult children before, people who don't grow up, right?
Are you kidulting me?
They don't move out of their parents' basement, that kind of thing. They're 40 years old. They're still living at home with their folks. And we're going to talk about their buying habits coming up.
I just heard the best sales pitch I've heard in a long time on an airplane. The flight attendant announced, "If you paid more than $75 for your round-trip ticket, you overpaid." This is brilliant because everybody on the flight paid more, and I was struck by how all the road warriors stopped typing and reading and working and looked up. The announcement invited us to apply for the airline's credit card, and the sign-up bonus, enough frequent flyer miles for a free round trip. Talk about turning lemons into lemonade. With some banks offering free credit cards, $75 is an outrage for an annual fee, but a bargain for airline tickets. For more tips on communicating more effectively, hit survivalspeech.com, where you can see how I got the CEO of another major airline to shower me with freebies. I'm Holland Cook.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
The House of Representatives Committee investigating the January 6th Capitol Hill riots unanimously recommending that former President Donald Trump, his lawyer, and others should face criminal charges in connection with the insurrection. The panel is recommending charges of obstructing an official proceeding of Congress, conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to make false statements, and inciting or assisting an insurrection. The vote is not legally binding, and the Department of Justice is not required to take any immediate action. But Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland, unveiling the charges, made it clear the committee believes action is justified.
We believe that the evidence described by my colleagues today warrants a criminal referral of former President Donald J. Trump, John Eastman, and others for violations of this statute. The whole purpose and obvious effect of Trump's scheme were to obstruct, influence, and impede the central moment for the lawful transfer of power in the United States.
A Trump spokesman dismissed today's proceedings as a kangaroo court. In other news today, the UK's High Court has ruled that the government scheme to send asylum seekers to Rwanda is lawful. So far, legal challenges have meant that no flights carrying migrants to the African nation have been able to take off. From FSN's London bureau, Giles Gibson with more.
Judges at the High Court said the UK's agreement with Rwanda is consistent with the UN's Refugee Convention, but the court also said that Priti Patel, who was Home Secretary when the policy was introduced, had not properly considered the circumstances of the individuals due to be sent to Rwanda. The policy was unveiled back in April, but the first flight in June was stopped by a last-minute injunction. NGOs and charities have vowed to fight the policy all the way in the courts, with no flights expected anytime soon as appeals work their way through the legal system.
Police in Canada say a 73-year-old man was responsible for a gun attack in Toronto that left 5 people dead. Police killed the attacker at the scene but have no explanation yet for his motive for attacking the apartment complex. A United Nations summit has approved a new set of goals aimed at guiding global action to protect biodiversity by the end of the decade. The Global Biodiversity Framework seeks to protect 30% of the world's land and sea by the year 2030. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today and tomorrow, a look at the latest situation in China regarding the country's zero-COVID policy. It is still officially the law of the land, though in many practical ways, the country's strict policy of lockdowns has been abandoned by the government of President Xi Jinping following public protests in various cities over the last few weeks. So, what do the numbers look like? Steve Chang is the director of the China Institute at the School of Oriental and African Studies in the UK.
The official collection of statistics on COVID data have been completely changed, and a lot of cases are not being recorded. Now, the anecdotal evidence is pretty overwhelmingly that hospitals now require doctors and nurses and other staff, even infected with COVID, to work if they are physically able to do so. Mortuaries are piling up with bodies, and funeral homes are working 24/7 to cremate bodies. I think it is a significant change, but in absolute number terms, the Communist Party is technically absolutely correct when they say that the number of deaths in China, both in absolute and relative terms at the moment, is still substantially below that of the UK or the US.
Tomorrow, the political consequences of the Chinese government's U-turn. The main news again, the Congressional Committee investigating the January 6th Capitol Hill riots has unanimously recommended that former President Donald Trump, his lawyer and others should face criminal charges in connection with the insurrection. The UK's High Court has ruled the government's scheme to send asylum seekers to Rwanda is lawful, and police in Canada say a 73-year-old man was behind a gun attack in Toronto that left 5 people dead. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
Allison Fry and Peter Hartman are a long-term couple. They've been trying out an open relationship that frees them to emotionally burden and exhaust other people.
We're both grown-ups. We both trust each other. It just seemed like the right time to open ourselves up to meeting other people and barraging them with our crippling emotional neediness.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I still want to vent to Allison about all the anxieties I have at the office until she wishes I would just shut the up. But sometimes you just get the urge to sap the life out of a different woman for a change.
The flexible arrangement has allowed Fry and Hartman to participate in a variety of tiresome and psychologically draining one-off encounters with partners ranging from close acquaintances to total strangers.
Of course, there was a time when I couldn't imagine saddling anyone but Peter with my extensive emotional baggage and trust issues, but now that we've tried it...
The best part is, when we're back together, all we really want to do is drain the living out of each other.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. We're kicking off the second hour of the program. As always, you can join the show. Bring up whatever you want. Coming up, Luddite teens. This is apparently the new way for teenagers to be different, is to get rid of their cell phones or their smartphones. We'll talk about that coming up here. It's Ian, Bonnie, and Aria joining you tonight. The phones are open if you want to join us at 603-283-6160. But first, the new term for adult children, you know, that concept of the man-child, for instance, the person who is in their 30s, 40s, or 50s, or whatever, and they surround themselves with toys and things like that.
See, that's an interesting idea
basement.
because I think of Elon. I get it now. When Bonnie mentioned that we all brought in stuff related to kids, Elon Musk. Okay,
child,
I get it now.
Him,
I didn't catch that. She made a joke earlier, and I just now got it. However, to me, the man-child thing is different from an adult who just likes playing with action figures. Weird though that is, a man-child is someone who encapsulates, the negative aspects of childhood.
Well,
the tantrums and the impulsive, wild behavior.
Can a man-child actually hold down a CEO role? I mean, I've never really...
If they have enough money, I don't see why not.
Yeah, you might be right about that. I don't know. We've talked about these man-children before, and there was a story a few years ago on Free Talk Live. It was about this guy who was like suing his parents or something like that because they were kicking him out of their house.
Oh my God, I remember this.
Yeah. And he was described in the story as being a man-child. And one of the problems with this guy was he couldn't hold down a job. He's just a loser. And so he wants to mooch off of his parents. I've always sort of had that view of the man-child, of somebody who refuses to grow up at all, right? Like they cannot even handle the responsibility of showing up at a job on time. I don't think that's what this story is going to be about, so I was just sort of throwing out these different terms. There's adult children, there's man-child.
I think man-child can mean different things. Certainly the person you mentioned is a man-child. I think Elon Musk can also be a man-child, and there's degrees of man-children, I guess, whereas the guy who sued his parents because he can't hold down a job is, the worst of the man-children.
Like, I saw a tweet on Twitter, and I don't know. Of course, I'm not a parent, so it's bad to, judge someone for something I've never been through, but I felt like this was the most man-child tweet I've ever seen. The man was like, I'm honestly not adjusting too well to parenthood. There are some things you just don't realize that you'll miss, like sitting in the living room with your friends enjoying a blunt. And I was like, oh God. If you were entering into parenthood purposefully and then you're like, I just want to smoke a blunt with my friends.
I suspect he was not doing it purposefully.
Then again, if you accidentally have a kid.
Awareness of giving up those things is one of the reasons why I do not have kids, right? And I suspect that's true of you both as well. And maybe not, I don't want to sit around smoking blunts with my friends or whatever, but I recognize that there are things that I do now that I would not be able to do if I had children, and that's why I don't have children.
Let me tell you, I know plenty of people who will smoke a blunt with the kids in the room.
That's the thing. My friends that have kids definitely smoke weed.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that either.
Whatever. I knew people who would smoke blunts with their teenage children at some point.
They're going to smoke
Florida.
pot. Might as well be with their parents.
I agree with that. So here's a story from CNBC.com. There are two things keeping the toy industry afloat right now: inflation and a consumer group known as kidults. Now, I'm not sure how they're going to argue that inflation is helping the industry stay afloat, but let's find out. So these kids are at heart, or these kids at heart are responsible for 1/4 of all toy sales every year, around $9 billion worth, and are the biggest driver of growth throughout the industry, according to data from NPD Group. The group, or rather this cohort, which is defined as ages 12 and older, has been steadily contributing to the industry for years. Now, why would it be, how can you call them kidults if they're 12 and older? Those are definitely still very young people,
what?
Right?
They shouldn't count 12-year-olds.
The idea of a 12-year-old playing with toys doesn't sit right with me. Like board games, right? They're good for ages, 6 to 100, right? But it's supposed to drop off a bit in the middle, especially in the teenage years.
I don't know. Like when I'm trying to remember my 12th birthday, and I am certain that I received toys and liked them, like dolls and cutesy things. Like I was probably getting into I want play makeup and a fake purse or something like that, but also a Hello Kitty stuffed animal. I would have gone crazy,
Maybe, but at the age of 14, any 14-year-old boy who's playing with G.I. Joes is a future loser.
Okay, you make a good point. I mean, there's definitely some transitory years in there. I think that maybe people who weren't as mature when they were in their younger teens see this as ridiculous, and then others who were maturing faster are like, yeah, that makes sense. So I guess it just depends on the individual. But so they say that this particular group of people, the supposed kidults, has been steadily contributing to the industry for years, but spending accelerated in the wake of the pandemic, leading to year-over-year gains despite tough comparisons. It's an important moment for the toy industry, too, with the holiday season upon us. While sales surged across the board for board games, puzzles, and play sets during the pandemic, since people were staying home, so they needed something to do, the first 9 months of 2022 saw a 3% decline in sales volume. Higher toy prices helped outweigh these losses as sales revenue for the time period jumped 3%.
Oh, so I see what they're saying. They're like, oh, they made the same amount of money because of inflation. That's stupid. If the money is worth less, then it didn't help the economy. That's so stupid. Or the industry.
It's the broken window fallacy. Well, I guess sort of.
It's like create a problem and say it's the solution. Oh yeah, it is the broken window fallacy because it's like, oh well, now he's gonna have to pay to put money into the community by the broken window, and it's like it doesn't actually help.
It doesn't help because it's money that they could have spent on more productive things.
Yeah,
right?
The government, made it to where these people had to spend more money on their toys.
I mean, they're buying toys, though. I mean, so we could say they could have spent more money on more productive things. Oh, I mean, I guess it produces happiness, and I'm not going to judge them for that. Whatever.
Does it, though?
I do. Yeah.
Maybe temporarily.
Yeah, I mean, consumerism tends to not really produce happiness, right? It is just that temporary illusion of, ooh, I got the thing I wanted, and then you put it on a shelf, right? And then it sits there and it gathers dust, and then you got to get the next thing.
Well, the example I was about to give was video games, because I feel like there's a big difference between video games and toys. Because
I agree.
Because with like that doll I told you I bought, which I have to admit, I guess I'm a kidult because I've bought toys as an adult.
Do you have a collection of them in a room somewhere?
Don't tell the Matrix chat this. They're already like, Bonnie's 13 or whatever.
I bought, during COVID actually, I just lived right by a Walgreens and I was buying other things and I saw these LOL OMG doll surprise boxes and I just really like surprises, so I was like, oh, I want to buy this because you don't know which one you're going to get and it'll just be a fun thing to go home and do. And then they're like little babies dressed in kind of like lingerie.
That's so weird.
It's not weird at all.
And I didn't know until I found out from Vigilant Citizen that parents were pissed because if you put those doll babies underwater, they get weird satanic imagery on them.
Do they really?
And it wasn't even like an advertised feature.
Ari's ready to buy them now.
No,
I'll show you mine.
This is a true thing, though? They actually do this?
Yeah, and it's really weird because it's like...
Wait, is it actually satanic or just like weird?
That was what Vigilant Citizen said. He calls
stuff,
everything
right?
satanic. Like... Mine got really big black eyeliner. Like I feel like if a little kid was just playing in the back,
they go freaky, right? Like freakier than they would normally.
And something like
a
thong on it. And keep in mind, they're supposed to be babies.
It's weird.
And it's wearing a thong.
It already had fishnets on before the cold water feature thing.
You should not ever put your baby in fishnets. There are a few maxims I think that people should live by, but like baby and fishnet does not go together.
But these LOL OMG dolls, when I worked at Walmart in 2019, I was like 23.
LOL OMG?
Yes. I worked in the toy section.
I'm not ordering one. I just want to see this satanic imagery.
Type in satanic LOL OMG dolls.
Okay.
Well, anyways, when I worked at Walmart, I was like 23. I was really kind of getting interested in them too because I was getting to see all the toys I was putting up. There's other things I was more interested in. But so many times, like a gay guy my age would come up and be like, I need the new LOLMG doll. Has it come in yet? And come and ask me to help him look for it. And mostly it was moms buying for their young kids. But I would say about 50-50, like gay guys my age, they love LOLMG guys.
That's so weird.
Dolls.
Why?
Collections.
The number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We'll get into more about these kidults coming up here. It's Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
I actually tried to delete my own Facebook. It only lasted 2 days. I couldn't get off it. It was tough. They won't delete it. They want you to come back. They know you're going to come back because it's like a drug. They know you're coming back for it. They're crazy like that.
Some people I went to grad school with, they would give their password to somebody else and tell them to change it so they couldn't log it back on and give it to them after finals were over.
My problem is my password is after my dog's name, Buster, so I actually name all my passwords that.
So what's your
Right, what I'm saying is...
But what's your username?
Well, he's my little bub.
Okay, but you could give someone...
He's very nice.
Okay, so
everybody loves Buster.
I just want to say thank you for redeeming this.
You might want to go change all your passwords
Yeah,
now.
she's suggesting
well, it's not just Buster. I use capital letters and numbers.
Okay,
Great call, man. Thanks for making it. I appreciate it.
I hope that was fake.
Thank God. Of course it was. It was hilarious.
What are you talking about? Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Phones are open here. You can join us at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Aria.
And Bonnie has gone and retrieved one of these, what were they, LOL OMG?
Yes.
Bonnie's getting us banned by throwing up child pornography.
Oh, God, don't say that.
Just based on the name alone, I would have zero interest in something like this. Of course, I'm not interested in dolls at all, but...
So the thing is, like, I always hated the name, and then on top of that, I thought they were just so much worse than Barbie. Well, I've always been, like, partial to Barbie. And like, even Polly Pocket, I loved Polly Pocket. And
Polly Pocket was neat. They were tiny little dolls, right? Like,
yeah, you could get in that form, but then later on came, like, a little bit bigger dolls that So like there was the tiny form where it was like everything was just in a little heart-shaped locket, and that was fun.
Mm-hmm.
I only ever had like one of those, and then I got millions of the bigger sized ones.
Okay. I didn't even know they made bigger size ones. Of course, I wasn't allowed to play with dolls, but my sister had them, and I thought they were neat.
Never thought about that. Like my older brother always would come play with dolls with us, but he would always be trying to kill us or something.
So you said that these dolls are actually not satanic. You've now looked into it and you misrecalled.
So, okay, I'm sorry. It wasn't satanic. I mean, the eyeliner's a little creepy. Like, that was kind of creepy even to me when it first popped up.
What you're saying is you put this doll that you purchased under water, cold water, and it revealed certain features that weren't advertised with the product.
Nope.
That it didn't
weren't.
say, run me underwater and I'll change my outfit or whatever. It's just...
That's so weird,
just
man.
a weird thing that's just there that they didn't talk about.
Yeah.
But it wasn't satanic.
I'm
You
going to
said-
run my laptop underwater to see if
Bad
it
plan.
comes up with any designs on it.
It's just weird in a way because it's supposed to be a baby, right?
Mhm.
So, like,
Yeah.
like the thing that pops up on mine is kind of like this lingerie-esque outfit and then really creepy eyeliner. Like, that looks like spiders or
But
something.
did you look online to
But-
see if there were other ones that were like
Yeah.
actually satanic? or
No, yeah, I did, but online, none of them were really satanic. Just like some of them were more like obvious lingerie,
Mhm.
and then some of
That's
them
weird.
were like a pizza icon. Like, why would a
Uh-oh.
pizza icon appear on a doll at all? But one of them
Pizzagate.
was on its like genital area.
There's not a coincidence, right? Like that's something that some designer chose to do, and they chose to hide that.
But they could have been trolling with that. Like, if it was up to me and they were like, hey, for whatever reason, I'm a doll designer today, and they're like, do something weird and messed up. I'm like, pizza. Got
Oh
it.
my God.
Okay.
Let's
I feel like
troll some people.
Designing these dolls is already weird. Like, I don't know why I ended up thinking, like, you know what, they are kind of cool. Maybe it's kind of peer pressure because so many people were coming up to me like, oh my God, I have to get the new OMG, LOL OMG doll. So I ended up thinking they were cooler than they really are. But really, Bratz, Barbie dolls, even my scene dolls that don't exist anymore, all superior to LOL OMG. I never, like, played with this or anything.
I mean, they're all essentially the same, right? Except Bratz is like Barbie with attitude, I guess. And I don't know.
Actually, my mom never let me play with Bratz, but I would watch the movies at my friend's house.
Is it because they had too much attitude?
It's because they were dressed like sluts, she said.
Okay.
Probably good. I mean, it's probably the right thing for her to do, right? Of
I feel
course
like if I walked around dressed like Barbie every day, she'd be like, you look like a slut.
Yeah, probably true.
You'd also be unable to walk. Well, no, if you had Barbie's dimensions, you'd be unable to walk.
There's a Barbie movie coming out now, by the way. I saw there was
Is
a
there?
trailer for that.
Yeah, it's going to be Margot
teaser-
Robbie, which is
teaser
pretty much
trailer.
a perfect person to play her.
By the way, thank you to High Flyer with a 3 in his or her name for joining our Free Talk Live AMPS program. amps.freetalklive.com is where you can go to join him for as little as $5 a month. You're helping us advertise, market, promote, and support Free Talk Live, helping us get the ideas of liberty and peace and freedom out there as often as possible, 7 nights a week here on Free Talk Live. Thank you, High Flyer. And you can join him over at amps.freetalklive.com. That's amps.freetalklive.com. You get perks like access to the AMP-only podcast, which has our full radio show archives without the recorded commercials that you would normally hear if you were listening to it live. So once again, that's one of the perks you get, and there's others. So go to amps.freetalklive.com. Aria, you appear to be closely examining.
Is this a skirt? What is this?
Oh, yeah, that's its skirt.
And what is the other thing there?
This is
I'm
the
just
shirt.
curious because the doll has a number of accessories here.
Yeah.
I can't get the shirt back on, so...
Okay, skirt and
crop top.
Crop top.
Yeah.
Okay, weird.
Yeah, I mean,
all
I think
pink and black. I mean, good color choices.
I think there is something to the Vigilant Citizens theory here that this mainstream kind of toy business, the music business, is interested in taking very young children and turning them into some sort of a sexualized thing, right? Like there's no
a lot of
reason
industry
to-
exists to sell sex to kids, no doubt.
Yeah. I mean, there's just no reason to have... What is it? What do you call this? Fishnets on this little... It actually says baby on the shirt.
In like a punk rock.
Yeah, but
lettering.
like baby metal isn't played by actual babies, right? I mean, it's just
Yeah,
But
this
they're
isn't a
advertised
Barbie,
as babies.
right? Like
Yeah,
this,
they're-
this
I'm
doesn't
pretty
have
sure-
Barbie's proportions. This is obviously a child doll, right? If not an actual, little...
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
weird. It's creepy. It's
It's
creepy.
little and it has a like pot belly.
It's hyper chibiized, right? Chibi. It's
What's that?
hyper. exaggerated childlike features, I think would be the way I would characterize that.
Oh, yeah, and it comes... I was, like, wondering why its mouth has, like, a hole. It's because it comes with a binky.
Okay, yeah,
Definitely a baby, then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll go try to find the binky later.
That pretty much seals it as supposed to be a baby, for sure.
So, kidults who spend more on toys, according to CNBC, have a
Mark said
great...
it's just a raver.
But you didn't get that to play with it.
I didn't
No,
know
she
what
was
I was going to
23.
do with it. I just
I know, but these
wanted the
people
surprise.
are getting toys to play with
Are
them,
they,
right?
though?
They're like
spend
getting their
money.
G.I. Joes and...
I don't know if that's true. They haven't said that yet. All they say here is that the kidults spend money on toys.
Okay, Bonnie?
I
At
never
Bonnie?
thought I was going to play with it, I don't think. I don't know what I thought I
What
was
could
going
you
to do.
possibly do at age 23?
Well, it came with a little display case, so I had it displayed for a while, but I just didn't like the look of the case.
So these so-called kidults, they spend more on toys. They have a great fondness for cartoons, superheroes, and collectibles that remind them of their childhood. They buy merchandise such as action figures, Lego sets, and dolls that might typically be considered for kids. However, in recent years, toy makers have created product lines just for these consumers, realizing that demand is high for this generation of adults who still want to have fun. Now, I don't think this is a new idea, right? Like, they're presenting this as a new idea. I think the only thing new here is the name. I've never heard the term kidult before today, basically, but this has been around for as long as I've been around. There have been adults buying toys.
I was talking to Mark before the show about how I think that people are always trying to make it sound like, oh, every generation is so different. There's this new generation of blank. Because I constantly see, I'm a Gen Xer, so kids nowadays don't know what it's like to play outside. And it's like my little brother and sister play outside unattended. I played outside. I roamed the whole place. I think about some stuff I did that I was like, well, that was probably actually like dangerous when I was a little kid because I would just go all over my neighborhood.
Well, I know you've got a story tonight, Bonnie, about kids who've been told they're not allowed to play outside, or at least a mother who's been ordered by apparently police in West Virginia to not allow her kids outdoors to play. So we can talk about that.
Does this mean in her yard?
Yes, like even if she's watching them out the window.
That's absolutely insane. This is private property. Get out.
We'll talk about that on the way here, but more about these so-called kidults and why is this being talked about now? This doesn't seem like that new of a thing, but maybe it is new compared to like 50 years ago. The number here is 603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in on this topic or whatever happens to be on your mind. That's 603-283-6160. Are you an adult with a room full of toys that you have as a collection? It is Free Talk Live. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The Congressional Committee investigating the deadly attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, has recommended 4 criminal charges against Donald Trump. It voted unanimously to send referrals to the Justice Department that the former president be charged with inciting or assisting an insurrection, obstruction of an official proceeding of Congress, conspiracy to defraud the United States, and conspiracy to make a false statement. FSN's Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
The House Select Committees argued that former President Trump knowingly spread unsubstantiated claims of election fraud in order to instigate a mob of his supporters to violently storm the Capitol in an attempt to overturn the outcome of the 2020 election. Committee member Congressman Jamie Raskin said the evidence the panel uncovered is more than sufficient to make the criminal referrals.
The gravity of the specific offense, the severity of its actual harm, and the centrality of the offender to the overall design of the unlawful scheme to overthrow the election compel us to speak.
It's an unprecedented move for Congress to make, but it has no legal weight. It remains up to the Justice Department to decide whether or not to indict the ex-president. Kate Fisher, Washington.
A Los Angeles jury has found Harvey Weinstein guilty of rape and other sex crimes. The former A-list Hollywood producer is already serving a 23-year sentence for crimes committed in New York State. After more than 9 days of deliberation, the Los Angeles jury found the 70-year-old Weinstein guilty of forcible rape and other sex crimes against a woman who says she was attacked by the Hollywood mogul in a Beverly Hills hotel room in 2013. The charges against Weinstein, who produced hundreds of films including Pulp Fiction and Good Will Hunting, helped spark the global Me Too movement. U.S. markets were down again Monday for a sixth week. Traders are assessing the Federal Reserve's outlook for next year, as central bank officials have indicated they plan to keep raising rates until they're confident inflation is coming down. FSN's Jody Jacobs reports from New York.
It was another not-so-good day on the New York Stock Exchange on Monday. The S&P 500 fell 0.9%, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average declined around 160 points. Nasdaq Composite tumbled about 1.5%. The lackluster performance comes after Federal Reserve officials delivered a half a percentage point increase, with the Fed chair indicating that interest rate increases will continue into the new year. In other company news, Disney shares declined about 4.8% to its lowest since March 2020.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. The phones are open here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Aria.
We're talking about this new term for something that I don't think is really that new of a phenomenon. They're calling it kidults. They're defining people in this category as people 12 and older, especially into older years, that are very interested in buying toys. For instance, they spend more on toys, and they're just overall into like things that remind of their childhood. Of course, in recent decades, we've seen toy marketers marketing toys directly to adults, and as it turns out, they're about a fourth of the toy marketplace these days, according to the numbers from NPD, which is some sort of industry group. They're worth around $9 billion. That is to say that one-fourth of all toy sales, $9 billion a year. By the way, I do want to let you know about the Socratic Experience. Now, this is an option for those of you that are ready to get your kids out of government school. You know it. Your kids know it. Government schooling is a failed institution. It's 1 out of 5 graduates are functionally illiterate. 75% of high school students are unhappy. 63% are disengaged. And according to the CDC, 19% of them are considering suicide. Now, you can end this immediately, but you got to have a plan, right? Like, there's got to be something you can do once you get your kids out of school. And there are options out there, and one of them is created by highly acclaimed and globally known educator Michael Strong. He launched an online academy that can give your child the same elite education found at Oxford at an affordable price. It's called the Socratic Experience, where students learn through philosophical dialogue and are engaged in a highly social and inspiring learning environment. The Socratic Experience nurtures your child's unique genius, and it's a proven school. Some of their students have gotten into the most prestigious universities and highly selective companies. If you bring up Free Talk Live when you register, you get 20% off your first year's tuition. You can go to socraticexperience.com/FTL and get that 20% off. Download the parent guide as well at socraticexperience.com/FTL. Class space is limited. That's socraticexperience.com/FTL. FTL. Now, look, I think that this, we're going to go deeper into the story here a little bit about these so-called kidults. I don't want to make it sound like I'm passing too much judgment here. Like, hey, you do your life. If this is what makes you happy, if filling a room full of things, makes you happy, then by all means you should do it.
But that's not going to make me happy. See, when I think about this, I think about people who are buying toys for whatever reason to play with them.
I can't imagine that's going on.
And okay, they're playing with them, they're getting entertainment out of it, and that's what makes them happy, and I'm fine with that. But if they're buying a room full of stuff to just collect and have it sit there on the shelf, then I'm going to kind of give them a hard time for that.
Well, I'm going to give people a hard time generally over the collection habit. I think that that's what we're looking at here. Because generally, I think they say, whoever they are, the people that study, people in their maturity process, they would say that at some point, and I don't know what the year is, but at some point, someone goes from being a child with like imagination. That's why you can have the G.I. Joes or the whatever Barbies, and they have in your mind this sort of existence, right, as a child. That's why at age 23, Bonnie, you bought this doll not really knowing what you were going to do with it.
And yeah, when you asked me that, I kind of forgot, but I do remember what I was going to do with it. I called my friend, and he was like, I was like, you have to go get one too.
Your gay friend?
Yeah. And he went and got one, and we compared which ones we got, and I really think the one I got was superior. Like, I love that its hair is black and pink. I love that she's like a cute goth Latina, and I love the outfit. So I got the best one.
But you didn't come up with your friend, together with your dolls, you admired the creation, right? Like, you could appreciate it from a aesthetic standpoint or whatever, the creative standpoint of making this thing, but you didn't adopt a name for the doll and start, bouncing it around and have a little adventure with your friend's doll, right?
No, but I think we did name them, and I don't remember what I named her, but mainly the fun part was getting the surprise out and being like, oh, I came with this, and
right. So at some point
and that was it.
And I don't know what the age is. I'm sure there's some studies that say between ages X, Y, or X to Z or whatever, children lose their imagination. Now, maybe there's some people who've kept it longer, and maybe that's true with some of these adults, but I think we're talking about collections here. And if you look back at, have you ever been in an old lady's house that has like all the little angel figures around?
Aren't those coping mechanisms usually, though?
What do you mean?
I mean, like, isn't that like specifically designed to allow them to like zone out and disassociate?
Knickknacks? I never really thought about that. I always loved my grandma's knickknacks, and I thought when I grow up, I'm going to have knickknacks, but now I don't want them because dusting.
It's too much clutter.
Yeah.
And I've never heard of that. I mean, can you tell me more about how you would
just collecting in general? I thought the idea is to surround yourself with stuff and to just zone out for some period of time and admire your collection of useless garbage and not have to exist in the real world with other people because you're instead just surrounded by crap.
I could see that because sometimes like you look at a knickknack and you're like, oh, I can imagine its world, like a cute little tiny glass giraffe, like it's so cute. I wish it was real. Imagine what it would do. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting because I can't put myself in that person's position.
I can't either. I would throw them in the trash.
Right. At some point, I started to turn against the idea of collecting, and I don't remember at what age it was, but over the last, over my adult life, I have gotten rid of the things that I had collected as a younger person. I've sold them or given them away or thrown them away, whatever way I could get them out.
I think you've collected more than me.
Ooh, zing.
You say that, but like you have the little thing there.
But I couldn't even find her bottle. I think it was a bottle, not a binky. I looked it up, and they're all supposed to be like milk bottles, but they're kind of cartons. And I think I had like a kind of square milk carton bottle with a handle, and it can go in her hand, or it can't go in her hand. It can only go in her mouth.
I ask about the old lady with the angel figures as an example of what I think is going on here, right? So I asked the question as we were going out to one of the breaks. It's like, well, are people that different from how they were 50 or 60 years ago with this quote unquote kidult phenomenon? Or is it just sort of the natural outgrowth of pop culture today as compared to, say, somebody who was at some point a younger woman who became an old lady, and throughout her whole life she collected these little angel figures, right? Like, she didn't have Star Wars to collect when she was, a young person, so she had these angel figures or whatever. So is this really a new phenomenon?
Actually, you just reminded me of something super weird that old to middle-aged ladies do, is get those hyper-realistic baby dolls.
This I'm not aware of. What are we talking about?
Creepy
like
porcelain ones?
They're kind of they're porcelain sometimes, but they're also sometimes like some like latex or something, to where they're made to look as real as humanly possible. And that's a thing that old ladies will like collect. There's even a Bob's Burgers episode where the mom has a problem with them, and she's like, "My babies."
So that's another good example then, right? Of this childish thing.
My mom had a couple of them
that older women have gotten involved in.
And it's definitely never been something like little kids would want. They're like, don't touch those things type of thing. Oh yeah, and also like glass dolls. My mom used to have lots of glass dolls. She would put them like in our room, but we weren't allowed to touch them, and they creeped us out.
So Jeremy Podower says, quote, the definition of adulthood has evolved, or says definitely evolved. This guy is a chief brand officer at toy company named Jazzwares. Quote, what it used to mean to be an adult was to be a very upstanding, serious member of society. And to do that, you had to demonstrate it intellectually, emotionally, in every other single way. He said, now we feel a lot more free to express our fandom as a part of our adulthood, he says.
If being an adult used to have to be all serious all the time, then I'll continue buying LOL OMG dolls.
Sure, I mean, you can do both, right? You can be a good, upstanding person who does all the adult stuff you're supposed to do, and then still buy toys or video games or whatever.
And I'm sure that's true of a lot of these people. The number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160 if you want to join us here and talk about the things that you might be into, if you want to admit it, right?
And we are fans of collectors here.
I'm not, but hey, you do you. If that's what makes you feel good. I think that ultimately it's just stuff that you can't take with you at the end. But there's more coming up here. It's Free Talk Live. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
What if you found a $20 bill on the supermarket floor? I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. You could save at least that much by buying in bulk, but not everything. AARP recommends stocking up on bread, which freezes well. Canned fruits and veggies and salmon and tuna are easy to store and have a long shelf life, as does pasta and peanut butter. And stock up when you spot a great deal on toilet paper, paper towels, tissues, and napkins, and plastic wrap, plastic storage bags, and garbage bags. Worst foods to buy in bulk? Big containers of junk food, which go stale quickly, and cheese, which doesn't freeze well, because fish has high water content. Freezing it too long can result in flavor loss, and olive oil has a limited shelf life. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and you can bring up anything here if you want. We're talking about this new term for something that has definitely been going on for some number of decades. The term is kidult, a person who spends a large portion of their money that they earn on toys, for instance.
Well, me, you, and Captain play Magic the Gathering.
Well, that's a game.
You also have not bought any cards in a very long time.
No, we've bought some.
Oh,
we
have
bought
you?
some cards.
Okay.
Yeah, because of the way we're playing it is, they do what they call a draft, where you buy brand new draft or brand new packs or whatever, and then you open them to create decks from. But that is a game that involves actually like thinking about things and strategizing and that sort of thing. And we already made the distinction between games and just straight up toys that sit on a shelf, right?
Yeah,
So
I
that's
would
what we're talking
never
about here.
buy like action figures from. I think they sell like action figures from Magic the Gathering and stuff like that. I would never
no interest in that.
ever be interested in that, or even the books. I just would rather play the game.
In the 70s and 80s, according to the story here at CNBC, the toy business began to shift away from being an industry that was just about the next innovative item and embraced creating more product based on entertainment franchises. To be sure, there were toys based on movies and TV shows prior to that time, but this is when the trend kicked into high gear. In 1977, Star Wars launched, and you started seeing a lot more licensed product at retail, where we were celebrating our fandom. This is the same guy they interviewed earlier, Mr. Padower.
That's because they let George Lucas keep all the merchandising rights to Star Wars. And he was like, I'm going to make some money somehow. He turned out to make a lot of money somehow.
Celebrating our fandom with toys and collectibles. This also included non-toy merchandise such as bed sheets, crockery, and clothing. Quote,
Crockery, like crock pots?
I guess so. At the same time, the intended recipient was almost all kids. But the children that were born in the 70s and 80s were really the first generation that had this much licensing and this much product that was available for them to demonstrably be attached to. And it's not a big surprise then that those kids in their 30s and 40s now, that they continue to demonstrate that, unquote. This kidulting trend, according to CNBC, started to rise in prominence around a decade ago as superhero movies and comic book culture exploded into the mainstream. It became more consequential to the bottom lines of toy companies in the last 5 years, according to James Zahn, who's the editor-in-chief of the Toy Book.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, kids were, fed consumerism their entire lives, and now they're adults, and they're
hooked on it.
Still, hooked on consumerism.
The toy manufacturers such as Lego embraced these consumers and created lines, often tied to nostalgic entertainment properties just for this cohort. Hasbro's Black Series for action figures is a prime example of this, tapping into the desire for high-quality Star Wars and Marvel collectibles. Even Mattel has lines from Barbie and Hot Wheels that are designed specifically for this adult group of buyers.
And they're calling them just collectibles now. So these aren't toys, or these are just adults who collect stuff.
They're intended to be kept in the packaging, right? Like, you're not supposed to play with these. The idea
to see if it gets money or gets worth more over time.
That's the theory, right? The idea that, oh, well, this thing that's coming out later that wasn't the original edition or whatever is going to be worth something because, well, we called it a collectible version and re-released it with some fancy
That's generally not how it works, though, right?
No, it's not.
Like, if you knew something was going to be, I mean, you're never going to know that something is going to explode in value. And if you did know, then it wouldn't explode in value because everyone would have one and that would mute the price of it.
And the reissue of the original thing that did go up in value isn't going to be worth a fraction of the old original.
There's a Barbie that's at every single Walmart that changes every year, and it's like the whatever year edition, and she's usually wearing a red dress. You can get her in like any different race, but she's about the same Barbie. And she's in like a fancier box, and it's supposed to be like you don't open those ones.
The collector's edition.
Yeah, the collector's every single year though.
Sure.
Barbie. And my mom.
If they only did it once, then they wouldn't make as much money. They got to keep bringing it out.
My mom got us one year, but she was so pretty to me and my sister. We would walk around with her in the box and stuff and be like, "Can we open her? Can we open her?" And she finally let us. And it's a good choice because it was better off with us playing with her and loving her
than just looking
than
at it.
just sitting in a box. And it would have been even probably opened up by my little sister right now, not ever sold.
I mean, you don't give collectibles to kids. That's kind of a jerk move, right?
Yeah.
Like, I can just imagine being a
Just to
little
tease 'em.
10-year-old
You can't
me,
open
and
it.
my dad's like, "Here's a collectible ex-Wolverine doll. You can never play with it." What the hell, man?
Listen, son, you'll understand someday. I remember for me, I think the first kind of realization that collecting was not something I wanted to do was Legos. They mentioned Legos here in this, and I definitely had them as a kid. And I enjoyed putting them together, and that's a fun thing for a kid to do or whatever.
Sure. But there's a purpose. I mean, putting them together is like playing with them.
Yeah, and I think maybe when I was really young, I would do that. But ultimately, what I ended up doing was just putting them together, and then they would sit there, right? And they would collect dust. And of course,
Well,
Legos,
you didn't have siblings.
I did, but I didn't.
Oh yeah, you had
really
one.
like spending time with her.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you didn't have siblings that were your friends, because me and my siblings would get out all of my uncle's old Legos, build stuff, and then play with them for hours. Like. Being the Lego guys and stuff.
Well,
Not
for
just
me,
build them.
it was like, okay, this is just collecting dust, number one. And number two, my parents, I think one of the ways they raised me really well was they made me buy my own toys, right? Like, I had to earn the money by doing whatever chores, etc., to buy my own toys. And so I was well aware of the price of the toys, and Legos were expensive. And this was in the 1990s. I considered them to be expensive, and they were.
How old were you when you were saying, this is just collecting dust, and threw it away?
I can't say for sure, but it would have been, young teenage years perhaps. I don't think I threw it away. I ended up selling a lot of them at a garage sale, and I did all right. But I didn't like the idea of having to dust them. I mean, dust was unattractive, but at the same time, like, Legos are the hardest thing to dust because they have all those little bumps on them. So there's all kinds of grooves, and it's really, really difficult to dust a Lego. But that combined with the fact that the price was so expensive, I realized this is not something I want to continue doing. And I think that was probably the first time that I became aware of collecting as a problem. And from there, I started to notice it more often, and until the point where I just started getting rid of stuff out of my life.
I think the worst collections are Christmas decoration collections. Just the worst. Like, people will get them bigger and bigger. My mom sent me some this year, and it's not that I don't think they're pretty. I like them, but I don't want any more. I don't want one more Christmas decoration, really.
See, I've always just moved a lot. And when you move a lot, more stuff is bad, right? You want the least amount of stuff that you can have in order to...
Well, that's because you're sane about that, but there are people who will literally box up everything they have, get rid of nothing, and move everything everywhere they go.
I have to imagine they don't move as often as I've moved in my life.
Maybe.
I mean, you could probably do that once, maybe twice, if you move to a new city or something like that. But if you're moving every 2 or 3 years, you're living disposably for the most part. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's worked just fine for me most of my life, and it's caused me to not want to collect a bunch of stuff. The closest I ever came to collecting stuff was when I was like, I'm going to build a regular Nintendo, an NES collection, right? Mm-hmm. And then I realized that the price of games were going to be, and the difficulty of having a old game console connected to a modern television all the time, because otherwise you got to get back there and connect it if you want to play it, and the games take up space. Right. And I was like, all of this can be done with a $100 laptop from Walmart, and
with
then
an emulator.
And then I can have 700 times the amount of games that take up exactly no space and cost me no money.
How far did you get into that collection before you abandoned?
I had maybe 15 total games. So I mean, really early on in it, because it's prohibitively expensive, first of all. But even if it hadn't been, I wouldn't have gotten very far, because before I was like, there's literally no benefit to doing it this way. It's just like the old school people who are like, oh, the only way to listen to an album is on the album. You can't buy, on the record, right? It's like, okay, I mean, you can say that if you want, but whatever. I know you're listening to that in inferior quality, and you know that, but you convince yourself that's the one true way if you want.
Other brands such as Funko have always catered toward adult collectors who are in tune with their inner kid.
Yeah, I don't like those things.
CNBC.
What things?
Funko Pop.
They're big dolls or whatever.
Oh, that's what those are?
They kind of look a little bit like OMG.
But aren't they larger?
They're larger, and they're supposed to be like there's probably a SpongeBob one. There's a...
And they all look the same, don't they? Like with minor changes or whatever.
They have like a uniform
base.
look, and then it's like whatever it is that you want. Like maybe Butcher Babies could have their own Funko Pop.
They probably do.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a bit of merchandising whores.
Quote, we know this generation does take their jobs very seriously, but at the end of the day, they also want to have fun, said the senior director marketing for Razer.
But they're not having fun. They're collecting garbage.
Razer began selling its classic kick scooter in the year 2000. Within 6 months, the company had sold more than 5 million units. Quote, 20 years later, all those kids have grown up, he said, noting that Razer has created electric versions of its scooters and ride-ons just for these folks. And now we're moving from things that sit on a shelf to the scooter, which is something you can do something with. There's more coming up here in moments. You can share your thoughts as well. It's 603-283-6160. Hour number 3 is on the way.
Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
Gold and silver. You can own the most stable assets in recorded history with BullionMax.com. Buy direct from BullionMax.com without talking to a salesperson, and your precious metals shipped fully insured directly to your home. Free Talk Live can get you their silver starter kit at employee pricing. Just go to BullionMax.com/FTL. It includes 5 ounces of the most desirable silver products plus a free gold back. This offer is limited to 1 per household, so get yours now. Go to BullionMax.com/FTL. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The Congressional Committee investigating the deadly attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, has recommended 4 criminal charges against Donald Trump. It voted unanimously to send referrals to the Justice Department that the former president be charged with inciting or assisting an insurrection, obstruction of an official proceeding of Congress, conspiracy to defraud the United States, and conspiracy to make a false statement. FSN's Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
The House Select Committees argued that former President Trump knowingly spread unsubstantiated claims of election fraud in order to instigate a mob of his supporters to violently storm the Capitol in an attempt to overturn the outcome of the 2020 election. Committee member Congressman Jamie Raskin said the evidence the panel uncovered is more than sufficient to make the criminal referrals.
The gravity of the specific offense, the severity of its actual harm, and the centrality of the offender to the overall design of the unlawful scheme to overthrow the election compel us to speak.
It's an unprecedented move for Congress to make, but it has no legal weight. It remains up to the Justice Department to decide whether or not to indict the ex-president. Kate Fisher, Washington.
A Los Angeles jury has found Harvey Weinstein guilty of rape and other sex crimes. The former A-list Hollywood producer is already serving a 23-year sentence for crimes committed in New York State. After more than 9 days of deliberation, the Los Angeles jury found the 70-year-old Weinstein guilty of forcible rape and other sex crimes against a woman who says she was attacked by the Hollywood mogul in a Beverly Hills hotel room in 2013. The charges against Weinstein, who produced hundreds of films including Pulp Fiction and Good Will Hunting, helped spark the global Me Too movement. U.S. markets were down again Monday for a 6th week. Traders are assessing the Federal Reserve's outlook for next year, as central bank officials have indicated they plan to keep raising rates until they're confident inflation is coming down. FSN's Jody Jacobs reports from New York.
It was another not-so-good day on the New York Stock Exchange on Monday. The S&P 500 fell 0.9%, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average declined around 160 points. Nasdaq Composite tumbled about 1.5%. The lackluster performance comes after Federal Reserve officials delivered a 0.5 percentage point increase, with the Fed chair indicating that interest rate increases will continue into the new year. In other company news, Disney shares declined about 4.8% to its lowest since March 2020.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today and tomorrow, a look at the latest situation in China regarding the country's zero COVID policy. It is still officially the law of the land, though in many practical ways, the country's strict policy of lockdowns has been abandoned by the government of President Xi Jinping following public protests in various cities over the last few weeks. So, what do the numbers look like? Steve Chang is the director of the China Institute at the School of Oriental and African Studies in the UK.
The official collection of statistics on COVID data have been basically completely changed, and a lot of cases are not being recorded. Now, the anecdotal evidence is pretty overwhelmingly that hospitals now require doctors and nurses and other staff, even infected with COVID, to work if they are physically able to do so. Mortuaries are piling up with bodies, and funeral homes are working 24/7 to cremate bodies. I think it is a significant change, but in absolute number terms, the Communist Party is technically absolutely correct when they say that the number of deaths in China, both in absolute and relative terms at the moment, is still substantially below that of the UK or the US.
Tomorrow, the political consequences of the Chinese government's U-turn. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. The Congressional Committee investigating the deadly attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th of last year recommends 4 criminal charges against Donald Trump. A Los Angeles jury finds disgraced Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein guilty of rape and other sex crimes. And U.S. markets are down again, with traders continuing to worry about the possibility of more rate hikes. That is the latest Feature Story News. Ira Spitzer reporting.
Buying a burger might start taking a bite out of your wallet. Meat prices skyrocketed this week after the place that makes the meat revealed that the cow smashing machine is all beefed up.
This machine has beef way up in it. The basher, the meat collector, even the main meat hole, all of it. Lousy with beef.
The cow smashing machine is an integral part of the meat making process, taking whole big cows into one end, with all different meats falling out the other. Supermarket chains warn that unless we start smashing cows again soon, we could face a serious beef shortage. The beef industry is working hard to unclog the cow smasher, but says it could take several days or even weeks to scoop all the beef that's crammed up in there. Until it's fixed, meat-hungry Americans can take solace in the fact that the chicken grinder is working at full capacity, just completely tearing up all those chickens, and the pig machine is porking out hardcore. Up next, bluesmen find a rising trend of their babies done leaving on that their old devil train.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. We are kicking off the third hour here. Coming up, the Luddite teens. Teenagers have figured out a way to be different these days. Is to just get rid of their phones. Pick up a book. Is it going to catch on? Well, we can talk about that coming up here tonight. It's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Arya.
But first, we're still discussing this new term that describes something that has allegedly been growing over the decades, although I'm skeptical. I think that this tendency has existed for some time with humans, the human tendency to collect things.
Certainly.
And Bonnie gave some examples of women that have like doll collections. So before there were all these licensed Batman, whatever we're talking about here, Marvel, Star Wars things for people.
There was Precious Moments.
What's that?
They're like little figurines. They're porcelain and really soft. And they're all types of different precious moments. Like you could get one for each age that your daughter turned. Like you could get her 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And lots of people did. I don't know why. Because like that would get old. Like every birthday you get a 11 when you turn 11, And they also have different things that are like graduation. It's like a little image of
dolls.
It's not just a doll. It's like images. Multiple dolls are in one
they sculptures
image.
Or
They're sculptures.
I see.
They're always sculptures, but they don't always have to be just an individual doll.
Yeah, so I think this has been going on for some time. But with the story here that we're sharing from CNBC.com, they are saying that there's a large portion of the toy market that is made up by these people. And I guess that's the claim, is that now the so-called kidults make up a larger portion of the toy buying market than ever before. So maybe there is something to the idea that this has become more popular. But that said,
I mean, consumerism has always been a thing. And as you point out, it's always been a thing even before the 80s and the 90s really escalated it, because there's some aspect of humanity that consumerism is appealing to and heightening in the first place. But it certainly exists, and people like collecting stuff.
They sure do.
And that's always been the case. It's, as you point out, it's a bit more obvious now. But I'm not sure any trends have really changed. It's just now adults are buying different stuff. Now it's action figures, whereas, as you pointed out, previously it was little angel figurines or whatever.
Right, and another thing that, of course, has changed between now and the angel figurine days would be that now people can display their things outside of their home, meaning that they can take a picture and share it on social media. Whereas before, when grandma had her huge collection of angels or precious moments or whatever, it would only be something that she could really show to people that would come over and visit her home, and then she could show off her angel collection. Whereas now, if you've got a big Funko collection or whatever, Funko Pop, I guess they're called, then you can post it online. In fact, we found
and no one still wants to see it.
Well, right. That's a good point. We found I think it was a Twitter account. Was it consumers posting their L's or something like that?
Oh, that's a really good one. It's so funny.
Consumers posting their losses, I guess.
L's is
L
losses,
stands for losses. Yeah, so it's consumer L's, and it's just got.
But it's consumer with 2 O's, right? instead of a U.
Yeah.
So it's like cringe, right? As people, oh, I got to see this.
It's really good. It's a really funny one.
Yeah, it's hilarious. So it's got the sort of the two-color image of like the dude, the neckbeard leftist dude with his mouth open as the image for the account, and then they literally take photos that people post of themselves just totally geeking out over their collection of whatever, and almost always their mouth is wide open in this sort of classic soy boy look or whatever, and then they take that and they turn it into an image, like one of these two-color drawing images of the soy boy open mouth look, and it's hilarious. I mean, I'm doing my best to describe it, but you just have to see it.
I mean, I like this first one. I owned over 500 games before my house burned down, collected for 20 years. Very humbling to start all over with nothing. This is my current collection. It's just 5 games.
They're starting all over, though. That's the point, right?
See, I support them having a maximum of like 5 games that they really love and they really cared about and that really impacted them as they were growing up.
But he's starting all over. That's just the start.
Yeah, that's
Before
depressing.
His house gets so, filled with stuff that it's a fire hazard.
What a waste of money.
So let's see a little bit more here. So we've gotten off of the portion of the story that was all about like collecting dolls or things that sit on a shelf, collect dust. And then they talk about the Razor, which is a scooter from apparently back in the year 2000. I mean, I remember hearing about these. I was definitely too old for this when they came out.
I had them. I didn't even realize they came out that recently. I thought they were older.
So would you get one now?
No, because those things like bump all over bumps, and there's so many bumps in our neighborhood. But even if it wasn't for that, I don't think I would enjoy it as much anymore. Like, me and my siblings lived on a hill that was like our driveway was a hill, so it was paved, and we would go down on that thing and then make a sharp turn in the middle of the road, and it was really dangerous. And we were always falling.
But also a scooter, I mean, isn't like the handlebar of it going to like come up to your waist or something?
Well, they are making them now apparently for adults. So I don't know if they've extended the handlebar or whatever, but they now have an electric version of the Razor, which according to this can go 18 miles an hour and retails for $600, right? So this is definitely not an item for children.
It's also not a collectible, though, which this is fundamentally different. This is a way for lazy people to get around, or for
people
not necessarily lazy.
Yeah, I was gonna say when I got my license suspended only on the military base that I lived on for a while, and I was walking to work, I was gonna get like a little Barbie car or something, but I ended up getting my license unrevoked in only a few months. So
well,
I didn't.
It says
but I was
right
going
here
to.
that apparently Mattel has a Hot Wheels brand for adults.
I would have literally done that because I didn't want like a scooter. I wanted it to be more like F you to the police when they drove past me in my Barbie car.
Dude, that would have been epic.
Right.
I will buy you a Barbie car if we can still do that.
Wait, I just realized Hot Wheels was the small cars, not the big ones, right?
Yeah, I assume they made like an adult version, though, that was like a go-kart size, right?
Oh, wow.
That would be awesome.
Hot Wheels and Matchbox were the tiny cars.
Right. What were the names of the big things that you were talking about, like the Barbie car that you could actually get in?
I don't know if they had like a name.
I feel like there was a type of...
Barbie had like the Jeep, right?
Yeah, there was like a pink Jeep. That's what I wanted on the base.
Dude, that would have been epic. God, I hate that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So this just drive around in the middle of the street with your little Barbie mobile.
I can't drive a regular car, but I'm going to drive this, and please pull me over.
According to the story here, so again, we got the Razor, and now there's a company apparently called Basic Fun that's another example of a company supposedly transforming its traditionally kid-centric toys into unique items for adults. The toy manufacturer partnered with Netflix to create a larger version of its Light Bright set based on Stranger Things that can be hung as artwork. It costs $100.
I didn't know that, but light brights are really cool. I played with light brights in high school with one of my friends for a while.
Now that's where you can create things, right? You can like make designs.
I got a note from a listener that the word you were looking for was Power Wheels.
That's it.
This actually is. I didn't realize that there is a name for it, but that's completely correct.
Did you ever have the Light Bright board, Aria, when you were a kid?
Yeah, and it brought back some kind of memory that I'm trying to remember. There was something weird with it. I don't remember what. I have some weird memory related to Light Brights.
I think they're fun.
I do find myself wondering here. I mean, they're talking about how they partner with Netflix to create a larger version of a Light Bright set based on Stranger Things. Does that mean that you can't play with this? Is it like a one image on the Lite-Brite board and it has to stay that way so you can hang it on the wall, or does it still have the full, like you can change out the bulbs or whatever it is?
It was bound to be changeable, right? Because even the original Lite-Brite had little templates for you to put the pegs into. Right?
I just wonder.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
probably what it is. There's probably just like Stranger Things templates that you can do. I don't know how else it would be based on Stranger Things.
Quote, and a lot of what we saw expanded during the pandemic because people went home and they rediscovered play, says the person they interviewed here.
I think that's an incorrect assessment based on everything we've heard so far. I don't think these people are playing with their toys, but whatever. Maybe some of them just became so damaged from isolation in regard to COVID-19 that they reverted to childhood and started playing with Legos and action figures. But I can't imagine that's too many people.
Yeah. If you want to weigh in here, you can. In the last 12 months, ending September, the kidult group represented 60% of the dollar growth in the toy industry, despite accounting for only a quarter of sales, according to their checkout data. Amazing. The number here, if you want to join us, it's 603-283-6160. Coming up, the Luddite teens. Luddites, people that are eschewing the idea of technology, getting it out of their lives. Now apparently it's a trend, or is it? We'll get into it coming up here in moments. You can share your thoughts on Free Talk Live. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 15th through the 18th for the 7th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Forkfest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out in 2022. For 2023, we're going back to where it all started, the weekend before Porkfest. Forkfest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 15th through the 18th. You can find out more at the unofficial website forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 15th through the 18th. Forkfest.party. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you prefer to listen to Free Talk Live on your schedule on demand? You can find the link to our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com, which features the daily digest of our radio show 7 days a week. Just drop our RSS feed into your favorite podcast client or subscribe to us on the large platforms if you prefer, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartMedia, Spotify, and Stitcher. All the links are at feeds.freetalklive.com. If the daily digests aren't enough for you and you really don't want to miss a moment of Free Talk Live, you can always sign up for our AMPS Patreon at amps.freetalklive.com for just $5 a month, and you'll get the full radio show without recorded commercials. Plus, you'll help us advertise, market, promote, and support Free Talk Live. That's amps.freetalklive.com to join AMPS, or feeds.freetalklive.com to get our main podcast, or find us on the major podcast platforms. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Free speech is protected on the internet, right? Not always. Government agencies try to limit free speech and commerce on the net. Luckily, when they do, the Institute for Justice is there to defend your First Amendment right to free speech. IJ helped set the first federal precedent for internet free speech in 1999, and ever since has worked to prevent unconstitutional roadblocks in cyberspace. Visit our website today at ij.org.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and the phones are open here. If you want to join us, we'll talk about the Luddite teens. These are young people who are giving up on cell phones, so-called smartphones. We'll get into that coming up here. Your calls and thoughts are also welcome about whatever is on your mind. If you want to weigh in on the so-called kidults, which we were just discussing, you can do that as well. Here tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Aria. I kind of have to agree with you, Bonnie. I kind of hate that expression, kidults.
Kidults, yeah.
What about adult children? Is that a better one?
That is much better.
Yeah. There's a little more as far as... It's got a little more of a mouthful. Adult children, kidults is certainly shorter, fewer syllables, but I agree it's an awkward word for
It's
sure.
just ugly. I don't like it.
Well, it's
alt is kind of an ugly
alt.
Yeah.
Let's go to the
I don't
phones
like
here.
the kiddle sound.
Let's get into Sarah first here. Let's find out, Sarah, what kind of, if any, collections do you have in your life? We know you were homeless for a time, and I would imagine it is hard to maintain a collection when you don't have a roof under which you can store that. But you've kind of moved up in the world since then. It's been a few years since you've been homeless, I believe. Do you collect anything?
Collect anything? The only thing I don't really have any collectibles. No, I don't believe in that. I don't have anything that I collect.
Something we have in common, Sarah.
Is it because capitalists want to collect things, Sarah?
Well, I just don't think that. That some people collect baseball cards and Barbie dolls or whatever. What's so important? Then why do they have to hoard? I don't believe in hoarding.
I'm with you.
Sarah,
you and I are on the same page on this. I'm totally with you on this. I think that, collections, people that have collections, it's just the next step to hoarding, right? Like hoarding is where you've gone completely overboard into the point where you can't even move around your house anymore. Like that's
Good Lord, that's horrifying.
That's the ultimate level of hoarder, right? Is where you've got tiny little paths in your home, and you don't, the rooms are just filled with things. You can't even get to the other side of the room because it's full of stuff. That's what hoarding is. Collections are certainly more organized, right? Like somebody's putting everything's in its place, and they're organized and dusted and things like that. So I wouldn't quite label collector as a hoarder, but they have some similarities.
Yep, and it can definitely easily get into that, especially if you're just not like a very clean person. I feel like that has to be an added thing for hoarding, because it's just like you can't possibly make your house completely clean if it's so packed with stuff that you can't make, you have to have a little...
You can't get there. You can't clean it.
...hold through walking through a room,
But what it is it's OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. It's a disorder. So it's your mind feels that if you give something up, you'll never ever have it get it back again. Your mind says you're deprived. I have a lack of abundance. I can't let any of this go. I'll never get back again. And most people from Great Depression or people that had a lot of poverty, they get stuck on this OCD.
You make a great point, Sarah. I've never actually heard somebody bring up the idea of the lack of abundance as the sort of the ultimate reason, the sort of the base level reason why somebody might have this hoarding problem. The idea that they just can't let something go because I might need that someday, even though it's like somewhere in the corner of their house they haven't seen it for 5 years or 10 years.
I get that feeling all the time when I think about throwing something away. I'm like, I know I'm gonna need this if I throw it away, but it's not the same, I don't think, as what Sarah's describing.
but you throw it away.
Yeah, exactly. Like I can be like, okay, whatever, I'll buy a new one.
That's the critical difference.
Yeah, you can acknowledge the feeling. You know it exists. You know where it comes from.
And yeah, there are some people that are just like, if I throw this away, I'm gonna need it, and I need this exact one. And maybe it has to do a lot to do with like whether or not they can actually afford to rebuy the thing.
You know, you should. Go ahead, Sarah.
It's an anxiety disorder. It's anxiety. It's a mentality of lack of abundance. I won't have enough. That's what you're claiming when you're professing OCD. You're like, I'll never get this again. I'll never have enough money. I'm never going to get this again. So you're reinforcing yourself that I don't have enough.
Well, this is also where a lot of the fear of environmental catastrophe comes from in a similar way, because those people believe in this sort of lack mentality where the world never can have enough, right? Where, oh my God, we're going to run out of water, or we're going to run out of, oil, or we're going to run out of whatever the thing is. And they don't understand that there's always enough, because human ingenuity can figure out how to make new things that didn't exist before. New technologies, as far as energy is concerned, will be discovered. And as far as water is concerned, it just changes form. So we're not running out of that anytime soon. Sarah, what were you calling about tonight? Because I realized it took you off your track.
Yes, I just want to hear that. That I've been listening to the collagen commercials, and they said that we used to get a lot of collagen because people used to eat a lot of bone broth. It was like a very common in the butcher shops. They would have these. Did you buy the bones for a soup? So it actually had a lot of collagen surrounding a bone, like cartilages, and those are things that when you cook in soup, it becomes collagen.
And what is that? What is it good for?
It's good for like your skin elasticity and also like your bones and joints and stuff. I don't really know.
Right. That's correct.
That's correct. Okay.
Weren't you just talking about this last night?
It's weird. It's like Sarah was spying on me yesterday,
Right.
because yesterday I literally was going to the grocery store to just buy like milk and cream cheese, and I was listening to a book about nutrition, and I was like, I gotta get something with a bone in it and create it so we can get the collagen.
And you did.
And I
it
did.
was delicious.
Yeah.
Sarah, are you spying on us?
Wait a minute. So wait. Who?
Are you the FBI?
Well, the thing is that I have no idea if I have connections with Bonnie. I don't know that. I was just paying attention to this collagen thing.
Well, you were right on tonight, Sarah. I got to say, good call. I mean, it's not always a good call just because you agree with us, but it's a rare call where Sarah agrees with us. So it was kind of fun to have an agreement with you, Sarah. Thank you for the call tonight. I do appreciate it.
Even if you are a Fed who's spying on us.
The number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. If you want to join the show, you absolutely can. Since we were talking about hoarding and people just like making a mess of their lives by collecting a bunch of stuff, you should plug that channel of the foreign girl from Europe that does the cleaning. So Bonnie found this channel. And have you seen Hoarders before? Do you know the show Hoarders, the television show?
Sort of. I have vague memories of like watching it with my ex-wife way back in the day.
Yeah, I guess it is kind of an old show at this point. I don't know if it's still on the air or whatever. It's a I think TLC show where they go to people's hoarding houses and they try to help them clean it up, and it's really crazy to look into these people's lives and how hoarding they are. But there's something else that's new that's happening on YouTube. And who is this lady?
And she also has a TikTok. Her name is Auri Katarina. That's exactly how she says it.
Mm-hmm.
It's AURI Katarina with 2 I's.
With a K, Katarina.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And all one word. But
that's her channel name?
Yeah, that's her channel name and her name. And if you search that in cleaning, you'll find her. She goes and cleans people's houses for free, like expertly. I've learned so many tricks from her. And these houses are hoarder style, really bad, but also just like a lot of trash and junk and
stuff.
grime, and she cleans them for free. She gets paid by her YouTube.
Literally like a real life angel. This woman swoops in and just loves to clean up other people's messes.
She loves it.
It's amazing to watch. There's more coming up here. It's Free Talk Live.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The Congressional Committee investigating the deadly attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, has recommended 4 criminal charges against Donald Trump. It voted unanimously to send referrals to the Justice Department that the former president be charged with inciting or assisting an insurrection, obstruction of an official proceeding of Congress, conspiracy to defraud the United States, and conspiracy to make a false statement. FSN's Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
The House Select Committees argued that former President Trump knowingly spread unsubstantiated claims of election fraud in order to instigate a mob of his supporters to violently storm the Capitol in an attempt to overturn the outcome of the 2020 election. Committee member Congressman Jamie Raskin said the evidence the panel uncovered is more than sufficient to make the criminal referrals.
The gravity of the specific offense, the severity of its actual harm, and the centrality of the offender to the overall design of the unlawful scheme to overthrow the election compel us to speak.
It's an unprecedented move for Congress to make, but it has no legal weight. It remains up to the Justice Department to decide whether or not to indict the ex-president. Kate Fisher, Washington.
A Los Angeles jury has found Harvey Weinstein guilty of rape and other sex crimes. The former A-list Hollywood producer is already serving a 23-year sentence for crimes committed in New York State. After more than 9 days of deliberation, the Los Angeles jury found the 70-year-old Weinstein guilty of forcible rape and other sex crimes against a woman who says she was attacked by the Hollywood mogul in a Beverly Hills hotel room in 2013. The charges against Weinstein, who produced hundreds of films including Pulp Fiction and Good Will Hunting, helped spark the global Me Too movement. U.S. markets were down again Monday for a 6th week. Traders are assessing the Federal Reserve's outlook for next year, as central bank officials have indicated they plan to keep raising rates until they're confident inflation is coming down. FSN's Jody Jacobs reports from New York.
It was another not-so-good day on the New York Stock Exchange on Monday. The S&P 500 fell 0.9%, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average declined around 160 points. Nasdaq Composite tumbled about 1.5%. The lackluster performance comes after Federal Reserve officials delivered a 0.5 percentage point increase, with the Fed chair indicating that interest rate increases will continue into the new year. In other company news, Disney shares declined about 4.8% to its lowest since March 2020.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. You can join the show here and bring up whatever you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Interesting story showed up in the New York Times. And no, I'm not talking about the swastika, which apparently showed up in the New York Times at the crossword puzzle within the last few days, which is crazy.
Wow, I didn't hear about that.
Oh, it's completely crazy. It's sure enough. I mean, it's indisputably a swastika.
Yeah, it's like a completely symmetrical design. It wasn't like an accident.
It stands out. It is immediately distinct and recognizable as a swastika. This was intentional.
They published this on the first day of Hanukkah, apparently, by the way.
Whoa.
Yeah, not
and
good.
Mark thinks it's funny. Whoa, okay,
I can't imagine too many things more evil than than this.
It's crazy.
At first, I thought the answers would lead you to a swastika shape, but no, this isn't even the answers. It's like in a crossword puzzle where there's some blacked out spots where there is no.
I don't know
box.
why. I don't know what the hell Mark finds so funny about this horrific symbol of evil being in the New York Times on the Jews' most sacred day.
It's pretty offensive. There's no doubt about that. And from the New York Times of all places. I mean, you wouldn't expect that. But
from what I'm reading about this, the New York Times apparently has a history of anti-Semitism. However, these people are calling it anti-Semitism, but they're really just like criticizing the Israeli government, which, I mean, to be fair, should be criticized because it's apartheid and it's evil. Apparently, the New York Times criticizes the Israeli government.
In the crossword
and
puzzle?
that should never be called anti-Semitism.
Just in general.
Oh, okay.
Like, you just don't like Semites because that's so silly. That's
what they do, though. If you criticize the Israeli government, you're considered anti-Semitic.
Right, instead of the Israeli government.
Right.
Which is completely different than being anti a group of people which are mostly peaceful.
It's like when people call you anti-American because you don't like the government. It's just like, it's not that I don't like the people living here or even like somewhat the culture. It's the government that is currently ruling over everyone.
So teenagers from time immemorial have always wanted to be different. A lot of them have, right? Like that's a cool thing to do for a teenager.
That's why we dress like idiots wearing 50-inch bell-bottom Jinkos and crap, right?
I never did that.
I mean, we did. I did.
I don't think I even knew they existed at the time when they were around.
And it wasn't necessarily that we were trying to be different. I mean, we were different and we were trying to manifest that in appearance form, I guess.
So now they figured out a new way to be different, which is to go back to the olden times. On a brisk recent Sunday, and this is the New York Times here.
Do they call it ye olden times? No. Oh, that's too bad.
A band of teenagers met on the steps of Central Library on Grand Army Plaza in Brooklyn. So we're talking about, New York City here, to start the weekly meeting of the Luddite Club, a high school group that promotes a lifestyle of self-liberation from social media and technology. As the dozen teens headed into Prospect Park, they hid away their iPhones, or in the case of the most devout members, their flip phones, which some had decorated with stickers and nail polish.
So they're breaking their rules to an extent. Did I understand that correctly?
But they don't use them when they hang out?
So the most, as you'll learn here, the most extreme of the group have gotten rid of their smartphones entirely.
Okay.
But the group's open to people who are new, right? And so
you
gotta get the newbies in, and if they can put their phone away for an hour, that's a step in the right direction, basically.
Okay, that's a fair point.
Yeah. They marched up the hill to their usual spot, a dirt mound located far from the park's crowds. Among them was Odile Zexter Kaiser, a senior.
Boy, he sounds like he's Amish.
Sounds like a liberal, right? Senior at
I don't know what the heck you guys are gaining any information from that name. Sounds like an alien name.
It's got a hyphenated last name. It's a good sign of a possible liberal parents. But anyway, a senior at Edward Murrow High School in Midwood who trudged through the leaves in Doc Martens and mismatched wool socks. He said, or she said, not sure, it's a little frowned on.
Wait, does the thing say that?
No, I said that. If someone doesn't show up, we're here every Sunday, rain or shine, even snow. We don't keep in touch with each other. So you have to show up, right? How would you keep in touch with them easily without sending a letter?
How did a group like this? I'm such a technology person that I'm like, how did a group like this even form without technology, right?
That's a good point. How did they without technology? But
they got the word got around.
Honestly,
friends brought friends.
I don't know why you're being so mean to them because
I'm not actually.
You're not being mean.
I'm not being mean to them. I think it's an interesting
Ian is saying,
phenomenon.
they want to be different. It couldn't possibly be that they're just I could see my life would be better off without an iPhone.
Yeah, I'm just teasing because that's true about teenagers, right?
I think about
this
it
is a
lot.
way for teens to be different.
I think about
it
a lot, like how different would my life be if I just got rid of my iPhone? Like sometimes I find myself being about to leave a room and going grabbing my phone on the way out, and I'm like, I don't like that. I don't like when things are controlling my life. I stopped kratom because I was like, this plant is controlling my life, and it's just my iPhone is the main thing that controls my life.
Yeah, I presume you would read more books.
But I read a lot of books on my iPhone.
Touche. So some of them drew in sketchbooks after the club members gathered to form a circle and sat and withdrew into a bubble of serenity. Some drew in sketchbooks, others painted with a watercolor kit. One of them closed their eyes to listen to the wind. Many read intently, the books in their satchels, and they name some of them.
But those are all things you don't need to hang out with people to do. That's what I don't understand. Like, hanging out with people is more like talking and hanging out.
I guess it's so they don't feel alone, right?
Well, and then you make a really good point here, Bonnie. It seems weird to get together in order to be solitary,
ignore each other,
right?
yeah.
To sit there and get into the thing that you're getting into. But yeah, maybe it's so they don't feel like they're the only one in the world that's doing this. They have this connection to other people who are interested in these still solitary activities, but doing them as a group. I don't know. And maybe this is where they're starting, and then maybe they'll have a book club and have discussions. This might just be the one meeting that this reporter showed up to, right? So who knows?
Sure.
It does make me sad that like there's not like a whole bunch of people that want to go have book clubs. Like my grandma's always in book clubs, and it sounds really fun. It's just that I'm probably not going to have fun going to a group of old ladies book clubs. I don't know. I don't know. It would be fun to have. It's not about people my age. It's more just like people with my interests, and there's not just people with my interests.
This club cites libertine writers like Hunter S. Thompson and Jack Kerouac as heroes, and they have a fondness for works condemning technology like Player Piano by Kurt Vonnegut.
And Ted Kaczynski.
Arthur
that would be the Unabomber.
Yeah. Arthur, the bespectacled PBS aardvark, is their mascot. Quote, lots of us have read this book called Into the Wild, said Lola Shub, a senior at Essex Street Academy, referring to John Krakauer's 1996 nonfiction book about the nomad Chris McCandless, who died while trying to live off the land in the Alaskan wilderness. Quote, we've all got this theory that we're not just meant to be confined to buildings and work, and that guy was experiencing life, real life. Social media and phones are not real life. And she's right about that point. And we've certainly criticized people with their obsession with technology and the fact that it has driven especially teenagers, especially younger people, away from being able to even hang out with one another and then to this sort of digital realm of quote-unquote hanging out online.
It's not just teenagers, though, man. I go to the bar every Sunday night with people, man, and it never fails that at least 2 or 3 people are just glued to their phones the
this is
entire
in the group that you're
freaking
with?
time.
You're with these people?
Yeah, and these are, people my age, not kids, not 20-year-olds. These are 30-year-olds who just cannot stop scrolling Facebook long enough to just
have a conversation,
have a 30-minute night out at the bar with people. It's depressing.
Yeah, I really think these young people are on to something here. I don't think that in the world in which we live, it's likely that you can stick with this forever, but maybe they can.
It's always like anytime I think about leaving a social media, not even like leaving my phone behind, but leaving a social media, I'm like, oh, but I need it for blah, 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 XYZ, or like, oh, but I'll be missing out, kind of like, I'll end up not being able to connect with as many people as I would otherwise. And it just seems like overall the pros outweigh the cons a little bit. Because it's not like, I'm not letting Twitter ruin my life just because I'm on it. And I never go on Instagram anymore. Like, I haven't been on Instagram in, like, months. And other than that, I just have Snapchat, which is more for texting or watching completely random people I don't know stories.
The number, if you want to join us here, it's 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. It's like, hey, if you're doing a thing and you're getting a benefit out of it, just like with the collecting thing earlier, it's all about, you and whatever you want to do. But this is an interesting idea. More coming up.
This is novelist Tom Robbins. When my mother was diagnosed with glaucoma, her conservative Virginia physician told her there was only one treatment that might ease her pain and save her eyesight. That treatment was medical marijuana, which he could not prescribe. I offered to get her some and teach her how to use it effectively, but my father objected because marijuana was against the law. So my mother, who loved to read and walk in nature, was condemned to grow cruelly, unnecessarily blind. Tragedies like this happen all the time, but they don't have to keep happening. To learn more about medical marijuana, call the Marijuana Policy Project at 1-877-JOIN-MPP or visit them on the web at mpp.org.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
There are basically 2 types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Moments remain. Maybe enough time for you if you get on the phones right now. Our number is 603-283-6160. We're talking about Luddite teenagers who are getting together. They're kids that live in the the boroughs of Brooklyn and Manhattan and such. I guess those are the boroughs. Anyway, New York City. And they want to get away from technology. So they have gotten rid of their smartphones. Some of them that still want to have some sort of connection, because the article, which we won't have time for the whole thing, so I'll link to it over at our social media at social.freetalklive.com. But some of the parents, of course, are used to being, they actually use the term helicopter parents to describe themselves in the story.
Well, that's not good.
No, it's not.
If you're a helicopter parent, stop being that.
Right. And so they were talking about how difficult the idea was that their kid would not want a cell phone. And so they forced them to have at least a slap or what's the word I'm looking for? The folding phones, right?
The flip phone.
Thank you. Yeah.
Wait, what? I would think the opposite would be more difficult for your kid to want a phone. Wait, why is it difficult for your kid to not want a phone?
It's difficult
because
on the
then
parents.
They can't keep up with their kid all the time.
Right. They want to track their kids. They want to know where they are. They want to be able to call them at any time because they're helicopter parents because they're constantly hovering over their
That's
kids.
Insane.
But you can't control them even more if they have access to the internet in their hands.
The reason they're trying to get away from you and cell phones there's probably a big connection between your helicopter parenting and their desire to chuck their phone out the window.
Yeah, I suspect you're right about that.
Ever met a kid or a teenager that didn't want a phone?
Let's go to, well, that's why this is an interesting story, because it's young people who are breaking out of that paradigm, and I think it's a good thing. I think it's a healthy thing. Let's go to David, though. He's in Texarkana listening to KTFS. Go ahead, David.
You mentioned not being able to walk to the house. That is the most extreme case of hoarding. There's, depending on which scale you want to use, there's either 5 or 10, but minimal clutter, that is the sign of the initial eventually getting to that level. Like holding on to newspapers because I want to save for that coupon, but the newspaper's a month old.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, you didn't need it then. Why do you need to keep that coupon now?
Right.
There'll be another coupon.
It sounds like you've dealt with this
from,
in your life.
My mom suffers from it. She's getting close. She had, she can't sleep on her bed because there's so much stuff in her room and on her bed. That's how
that's when you know there's a serious problem, when you cannot find a place to put things, so you start piling them on beds and couches.
If I have to clean off stuff from my bed before I go to bed, it's going directly into the trash for being on my bed when I'm trying to go to sleep.
There's also the hidden closet hoarders who have that spare bedroom, and for guests, well, I'll turn that into a storage room. And
I've seen that quite a lot from people.
There's that too. The collecting, it's a sign of control. I can control this here, and that's kind of where it starts. Like, we know all about the TP thing years ago. It was, I can control this. When the world is chaotic, I have something that nobody can tell me what to do with it.
What was the thing from a few years ago?
Toilet paper.
Oh, toilet
TP.
paper. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the initial start, is you collect things. My mom has 4 or 5 canes that her ex-husband who died, he used, so she holds on to that. She's got stuff from my grandmother who died, I think, about 30 years ago. She's got this chair that's over 80 years old, and I want to keep it. Or, it's just simple little things like that. It's like, you don't use it, you got to get rid of it. And these now everybody's becoming minimalist. The tiny home revolution, they get rid of what they're not going to use.
I suspect everyone is not a minimalist, but yes, I mean, if there's a trend in that direction, I think it's a good thing, right? Like people simplifying their life, getting rid of stuff that you're not going to use, and getting over the sentimentality aspect of it, where you're looking at a thing and, oh, well, my grandmother had this. It's like, well, okay, now what?
But
right?
You own it now, so what are you going to use it for? If it's not, it's just a thing. You can get a new thing.
Right,
but
and don't infect your kids with the same belief system. Try to break that mentality and inculcate the idea of simplicity. I mean, this is something the Quakers talk a lot about, and I think they're right about it. The idea of keeping your life simple.
And if you die with like a serious hoarder house and your kids have to clean that up when you die, that's just rude.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
It's just an instant demolish. I get the house when Mom dies, I'm just putting everything out on the front yard and say, give me whatever you think it's worth. If it's worth $1, I'll take it, and then I sell the house.
I heard you, David. Thank you for calling and sharing your story tonight. I definitely. Go ahead.
I want to make a challenge for everyone.
Yeah.
I want you to go outside, take your kids to the park, and sit down and watch your kids all day and see if you find more value in that, just one day of it, versus sitting and collecting another item.
Well,
I don't have kids.
And let's combine both of these things together. Or if you don't have kids, just go to the park yourself, or go for a walk or something. Go without bringing your phone, right? So take your kids to the park without bringing the phone, because that's what you hear a lot about with parents these days, is they'll take their kids to the park and sit there on their phone the whole time and not even watch. Like, they wouldn't know if their kid fell down a slide or something in the wrong way, or hurt themselves because they're constantly
or some man invited them into his house to pet their dog.
Right. Hey, thank you, David. I really appreciate the call and thoughts here tonight. Let's go to Major Payne on the line in Michigan. Go ahead, Major.
Yeah, my old man was born in 1929. So he lived his whole life during the Depression.
Okay.
And he wouldn't throw away a half a shoelace.
Mm.
I mean, when he died, he only had a small house. It was 1 bedroom, but he had hoarded. I think it was like a 3/4 of an acre. But he had hoarded so much crap. My Aunt Irma, his Aunt Irma had died, and his ma had died. His ma had probably $250,000 of porcelain dolls.
Oh, no.
Crazy collection.
Hold on. He had $250,000 worth of... Whoa. Wait, Major. He had $250,000 worth of porcelain dolls in his one-room home?
No, his mother did.
Oh.
Okay.
Crazy collections. And most of them ended up going to the caretakers that he hired to take care of her during her demise. He didn't want to send her to the old folks' home. You know what I mean? It's just horrible. But by the time my old man... he died of cancer. And I was the only one willing to go over there and deal with it.
Oh, man.
I spent a year carrying him around at the end of it, carrying him around like a piece of firewood while he was dying. You got from 185 pounds to 97.
Whoa.
And it's the hardest damn thing I ever had.
I bet. And then you had to clean up.
At the end of it all, I had 6 months of garage sale, 3 roll-off dumpsters,
Whoa.
6 months on the burn pile, and I still brought home more crap that I couldn't bear to get rid of, and I turned my house in his house.
Oh, no. See, that's exactly what people should not leave for their kids.
Yeah, leaving a problem, right?
Yeah, I mean, a full-time job, it sounds like.
Yeah, as though it's not hard enough, right, to lose a loved parent, presuming you love your parents and that you're close to them, then you have to go through every last possession that they have and deal with it. And, man.
A buddy of mine, his wife, walked out into the park a couple of winters ago and just froze to death from demise, pretty much. And he's so freaking heartbroken. And so he just hit a deer with her car this year.
Mm-hmm.
And he can't quite bring himself to fix it or leave it. I mean, because this has got a wrinkle in the hood and a little wrinkle in the top, but it's a good cruiser. I mean, you can't get attached to sentimentality.
Yeah, grief does funny things to people.
Well, yeah, and again, do whatever you want. It's your house. You can load it up with whatever you want, but keep the memories. Do you really need the things to have the memories? I don't feel like you do.
I feel like having a couple things of your dead wife's is one thing. It's just different to
things.
Keep all her clothes and all
you don't
her
need
stuff.
Yeah, you don't want to go build Dotrieve on people.
Grandma was addicted to dolls. Grandpa, my old man, was addicted to guns.
Guns. All right, there you go. Major, thank you for the call. I gotta go. Thanks for the call, man.
Thanks, dude.
It's a good story. A terrible story, but one worth hearing. And we'll put the Luddite story online for you to check out, because I think these kids are onto something. These teenagers are onto something. I think it's a good habit they're getting into, trying to just put the phone down or get rid of it entirely. I wish them the best. More coming up tomorrow. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate.